You please do the roll call.
Yes, council members Hannah, Grunmeyer,
Here.
Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton,
Here.
all present.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to request to add 2 pending litigation items to the closed session agenda.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote?
Yes.
We'll have a motion I'll make a motion to add 2 items
Yes.
to the closed session agenda. We have a motion and a second. Cheryl?
Council members Hannah, Grunmeyer,
Yes.
Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Anything else? We'll reconvene, we'll convene to closed session. I'm going to go ahead and reconvene our city council meeting, and we'll have a report from closed session.
Yes, the city council considered the matter listed on the agenda in closed session, as well as 2 additional potential litigation matters which were added by vote of the council, and there are no reportable actions.
Thank you, John. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, and then the invocation by Pastor Robert Fonseca.
Please stand, recover, and join me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, we thank you for this opportunity that we have tonight to meet together, and I pray for the city council members, Lord, that you would give them wisdom, that you would give them guidance as they lead all affairs in our city, and we ask that you would just bless the rest of this evening, Lord God, and it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did I pronounce your name right? Fonseca?
Yes.
So any relationship to a Lou Fonseca?
No, not that I know of.
Kevin, you like this. He used to play for the Whites.
No.
I think he used to play for the Chicago White Sox back in the 50s. I have an autograph with him when I was a little kid. Eric?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to do the honors, or would your boss?
Actually, I'm going to have Chief Deputy Jason Horton come up and make the proclamation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, residents of Norco. My name is Jason Horton. I'm your outgoing captain from the Harupa Valley Station. I was recently fortunate enough to be promoted to Chief Deputy. The good news is I will still be overseeing the Harupa Valley Station as one of the stations in my new division that I'm responsible for. But I come tonight to introduce to you the new promoted captain. He was promoted yesterday. And give you a little bit of background about what he's going to be responsible for. And when I bring him up and introduce him, I think you'll recognize him very quickly. So just as a brief overview, the city of Norco is the oldest contract city that the Sheriff's Department has serviced since 1964 when the city incorporated. We have a very proud tradition of providing police service to this community. And the city of Norco has always fallen to the responsibility of a police station. In olden days, that was housed in the city of Riverside. It was known as the Riverside Station. And in 1998, they built the new station that we're housed in now in the city of Harupa Valley. It was an unincorporated area then, and they renamed it to the Harupa Valley Station. So fast forward to today, and that station services a combined residential population of about 250,000. In addition to the city of Norco, the cities of Eastvale and Harupa Valley also fall to the responsibility of that station. And in addition, several unincorporated communities to include High Grove, Lake Hills, El Cerrito, Home Gardens. And as you drive down the 91 freeway towards the beaches and you get past the city of Corona, both sides of the freeway are also unincorporated communities that are responsible to us, known as Prado Basin and the Cleveland National Forest. So all told, about 130 square miles, and that's all falls to the responsibility of one captain. And I had the privilege of having that role for the last 3 years. Best assignment in my whole career. Quite a bit of a responsibility, and on behalf of Sheriff Stan Sniff, there's a very extensive selection process that goes along with selecting a new candidate. That candidate that the sheriff has selected is newly promoted Captain Dan Hedge. And Dan is no stranger to the community of Norco. A little bit about Dan for everybody's benefit, and I'll bring him up in just a moment so he can say a few words. But Dan is a 30-year veteran of law enforcement. He started his career in the city of Paris when the city of Paris used to have its own police department, and he worked there for 9 years. When the city of Paris decided to contract its police services with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, Dan decided to lateral to our agency, and he was hired in 1996. When he was hired as a deputy sheriff, he was assigned to then Riverside Station, which became Harupa Valley, and as a deputy sheriff patrolled out of the Riverside and Harupa Valley Station, and eventually during that time frame of 5 years came to work in the city of Norco as a deputy. And he was assigned during that time as part of the community-oriented policing team, which is what Daryl Robertson and Art Mendez do today. He was on that team. Part of his responsibility was to oversee the Norco Citizens Patrol. So he became very intimate with the community at that time. And because he was a up-and-coming deputy sheriff, he was promoted to investigator. Spent a couple years as an investigator and then was promoted to sergeant. And to further develop his growth and give him more experience, he was assigned to the city of Moreno Valley. And he spent several years in Moreno Valley as a sergeant and had multiple assignments during that time, to include overseeing the school resource officer program and patrol and administration. He was successfully promoted to the rank of lieutenant, and when he was promoted to lieutenant, he was sent to the Paris station. And Paris, which is another one of our stations, is very similar to Harupa Valley, about 250,000 residential population. They oversee the cities of Paris, Menifee, and Canyon Lake. And in that assignment as lieutenant, he oversaw one of those cities, and also began learning about the administrative part of management, which is being the lieutenant in charge of administration, where you deal with budgets and staffing and kind of train up to what a captain's job is, overseeing the operation. He was very successful at Paris, and we brought him over here to Harupa, and he was your dedicated lieutenant just before Lieutenant Briddick came for a couple of years, and had a very good track record here, and became, again, very familiar with the community. His success in that assignment led him to be chosen to be a bureau commander. We only have a handful of lieutenants on the department that actually have their own command, and Dan oversaw our personnel bureau. So as a lieutenant commander, he was in charge of all the hiring for the sheriff's department. And that's not just deputy sheriffs, that's any employee that we hire, because every employee has to successfully pass a background process. And Dan is the final signer for all of those personnel who are hired, so quite a bit of responsibility. And it goes without saying, a huge pinnacle in one's career is to obtain the rank of captain. Dan was selected out of a large pool of candidates. And I'd like everybody, before I bring him up and as he walks up, to join me in welcoming your newest captain, Dan Hedge.
Why, thank you. I'm impressed about myself now. Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, I want to thank you for allowing me to come here and reintroduce myself. Actually, I'm honored and humbled by the fact that I have been selected to participate and have such a large command under me. I wouldn't have thought in the last 30 years that I would have actually ranked the rank of captain, because all I want to do is be a deputy sheriff. I just want to be a cop. Right? I grew up playing cops and robbers, and my dad was a railroad police officer. So some people get into law enforcement later in life. There was nothing that I wanted to do for as far back as I can remember as be in law enforcement. And back in 1987, I reached my goal, and now this is probably my fifth goal, but it couldn't happen to a better person, because I grew up with the Harupa Station. When I came to the Sheriff's Department, like what was explained, the Harupa Station was the first assignment that I had. This is my third stint there, as a deputy, as a lieutenant, and now as a captain. And I think I've explained it before to most of you that I've always held Norco dear to my heart, because when I worked here on patrol and on the community policing team, I really became very familiar with everybody here, the residents and the local community. It's unlike any other, as you all know. And, although I'll be the command of multiple communities now, Eastvale, Harupa, Norco in the county area, I assure you that I do take into consideration everything that's going to occur here. I have high respect for Lieutenant Briddick. We've worked together over the years. We were peer sergeants in Moreno Valley, and then we kind of promoted close to the same time, so I have complete confidence in him. But again, I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to thank you, and I will be here after the meeting if anybody has any questions, or if you have any questions right now. Thank you.
Council have any questions?
Hey.
Use your microphone, Ted. Thanks.
Dan, July 22nd, you got to put it on your calendar. You're invited to Day of the Cowboy. Jason, you got to bring him. Okay, all right, Eric, we're going to suit you guys up. You got to join the sheriff in the shootout. That's what you got to do, okay? You know what, when I told my wife I got promoted, she goes, well, you're going to cover Norco again? I said, yeah, as the commander of the Harupa station. She goes, well, at least you have cowboy boots. We'll take them. Sound good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Do any of our state representatives have any comments they'd like to make? Any updates?
I don't have any prepared.
Then I won't put you on the spot.
Legislative update. I can give one, but I don't have any announcements from the office.
Okay. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor and council members. Glad to be back. I did relay the message over to the assembly member, and you're in communication with making that arrangement. But really quick, let's see, April 7th, we will be having a VITA tax credit workshop at the Parent Center at Corona Norco Unified School District. So anyone that has made less than $60,000 can have their tax services done for free at no cost. So if anyone from the community wants to show up and attend, please bring all your documents, and we can help you with the tax services. And one more thing, so Senator Roth did introduce SB 339 that was co-authored by Assemblymember Cervantes. The bill would ensure access to recovery and rehabilitation programs for veterans who are battling substance abuse, PTSD, and other service-related disorders. So a quick legislative update, and I look forward to coming on by with the Assembly member soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move into City Council business items, communications, reports on regional boards, commissions. Berwin, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see, I attended the subcommittee RCTC on Monday, and the only thing that I got to report on that is on Friday, March the 31st, at the Amtrak or Metrolink station at the end of Main and the 91 freeway at 11 a.m. They're going to have the 91 freeway dedication. So that means it's getting almost done. They're going to have the dedication that day, and everybody's welcome to attend. Another bit of news, Governor Brown turned in his top 10 list of very important projects that the state of California needed this year to the feds, and the ones that was accepted, one of them was the I-15 project, is on the governor's top 10 list. So as soon as the 91's complete, about 2 months later, we're going to start, or they'll start construction on it on the 15. And with it being on the top 10 list, that means that the funding to do the rest of the work will be easier to acquire. On RTA, the Riverside Transit Authority, the buses, we're going to acquire, there's some vacant property on Vine Street across from the Metrolink station. And we've done sent it through the big board and everything, and now the RTA is going to acquire, I believe it's 11 acres. And they'll be putting in like a bus transfer there. We no longer use the downtown bus terminal. They've been transferring passengers at major intersections, but they're going to use this, eventually have this for major transfers, and it'll be easy access for the Metrolink passengers to get on the bus, or the bus passengers to get on the Metrolink. From June the 1st to September the 4th, and if you have young'uns, this is important to you. Excuse me. We're going to have the youth fare come back at 25 cents for students from first grade through 12th. They did it last year, and they had 148,000 students that rode during that time. That was 38,000 more than the year before without the 25-cent fare during the summertime. And you can also, for that price, they could also catch the bus and transfer into Orange County and go to, go to the beach at Oceanside. So it's a good deal. They did it last summer, and then they did it again during the Christmas holidays, I think, for about 3 or 4 weeks. But it draws a lot of, it gives a lot of young people some transportation where they can go somewhere like maybe the movies or wherever they want to go without the parents having to take them, and it's only like 25 cents. And as soon as they bring the flyer out on that, I'll give one of them to Cheryl, and she can put it on the city website and weekly highlights and everything. Also on March the 16th, which is a Thursday, will be RTA's 40th anniversary, and we're going to have a celebration beginning at 11 a.m. that morning over at the bus terminal on 3rd and Blaine area over there in Riverside. It's not that hard to find, but if anybody wants to come, you're welcome. They said when they started RTA 40 years ago, it started in a vacant service station, and they rounded up 6 buses out of the dump from some other city, cleaned them up, got them in running shape, and that's how they started RTA. Now it is, in the United States, it is the 2nd largest transportation system that there is behind the state of Connecticut. So that's a pretty big operation, and everything. And there's one gentleman, he got an award the other day at the meeting. He's been there 40 years working in the maintenance department. He said that he used to sit when he was young, and he'd watch buses go down the street and everything, and then when they started this RTA thing, he said that he was going to go get a job working on the buses, and he did, and he's been there for 40 years, and still going, and he's pretty high up on the ladder in there, too. So, anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Berwin. With council's permission, I'd like to stop temporarily on these reports and go to the consent item calendar that we have a couple of time constraints that we're working against, if you're all in agreement with that. So we'll go to City Council consent items. Does anyone wish to pull any items?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull items number 2C and 2D.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull 2E.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 2A.
We have 3 left. Second.
Council members Hannah, Grunmeyer,
This one.
Bash,
This one.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Cheryl. Let's go ahead and start with item 2C. And do you want to combine
Yes,
2D
Mr. Mayor,
with
I'd
that
like
also?
to have my remarks cover items number 2C and 2D. Both of those items are recommendations from staff for you to approve consultant agreements for services related to a potential revenue ballot measure for the city of Norco. Approving these consulting agreements will be the first official action by the City Council, and what it will do is it will allow us to begin the conversation we need to have with our residents and businesses regarding how we are going to provide funding for city infrastructure, staff our public safety programs to levels that enhances the quality of life and keeps the community safe. It will also allow us to address what we think are significant increases that are coming up down the road with respect to current city services, service levels. Even though over the last 4 years or so we have done well with capturing the revenues that were lost during the recession, all indications are that all of our major revenue sources are at or near resistance level, and therefore they are not expected to grow much bigger in the coming years. So we have to look to new major revenue sources to address our unmet needs. To do this, we have to engage our residents and our businesses, because ultimately they are going to be the one that makes the determination in terms of how we can best address these unmet needs. The consulting services agreement with the Lou Edwards Group will provide us with a project manager who will guide the city in the complex process of potential revenue ballot measure. There is a representative from, 2 representatives from the firm. They are here to provide us with more information about their firm and the services that they will be providing to the city should the City Council approve this agreement. Item number 2D is an agreement with FM3. This agreement with FM3 is a limited scope consulting agreement. The primary purpose of this agreement is for them to conduct public opinion survey research and to present their findings and recommendations to the city. This survey will be helpful in determining the type, the structure, and timing of a potential revenue ballot measure. Again, a representative from the firm is here to provide us more information about their firm and the services that will be covered under this consulting agreement. I'd like to let you know, I presented these 2 items to EDAC yesterday. Members of EDAC, Economic Development Advisory Council, we had a very lively discussion on this item, and following those discussions, they voted overwhelmingly to recommend to the City Council to approve these 2 consulting agreements. With that, I'm going to have Catherine Liu from from the Lou Edwards Group to provide us more information with respect to the services that will be providing us in respect to this consulting agreement. And following that, we can take questions from City Council.
Good evening, Catherine.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager, for setting the table. Mayor and Council, City staff, and members of the public. My name is Catherine Liu, and I'm President and CEO of the Lou Edwards Group. Should the Council, in its wise judgment, choose to undertake this initial step this evening, I wish to emphasize to the members of the public that may be listening that this is just a first step in really engaging the community and the team around your vision. It was such a privilege for me to be in the audience to listen to the transfer of leadership amongst your public safety professionals, and what really struck me was the joy and commitment that those professionals have to your community. We all know that it's becoming more and more difficult to provide these services, fix our deteriorating infrastructure, and maintain the quality of life that makes this community unique. Our role, as we see it, is simply this. As your consultants, we have no agendas or outcomes that we presume. Our goal in taking these initial steps is to work with the city to create an independent analysis and a scientific study of your residents to really take their temperature on what they feel the direction and the vision and the priorities of the city should be at this time. And along with that, whether they have any interest in the number of revenue options that may be available. It's entirely possible that they may not, but our goal in conducting this project is to make sure, irrespective of where you end up at the end of this process, that you have a good snapshot on where your constituents sit today and the priorities they would like to see you pursue. With that, I will pause for any questions. Also, Ms. Sharon Pinkerton, who is a top executive from FM3 Research, can respond to any methodological questions about how to administer the study itself.
Would both of you like to tag team together, or would
Sharon, would you like to come up and talk a little bit about the study?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Sharon Pinkerton. I'm with Fairbank, Maslin, Mullen, Metz and Associates, and we propose conducting a survey on behalf of the city of 300 voters, and the survey would be conducted using a dual mode methodology. So in the past, you're probably familiar with most surveys being conducted solely on telephones, and as people's phone use habits have changed, so has our methodologies. Because of the rise of caller ID, more unlisted phone numbers, and increased usage of tablets and other handheld devices to communicate, we now conduct our surveys both on the internet and the telephone, and we find that we get a representative sample of the entire community using that methodology. So that's our proposal for how we would pursue the survey. We'd work closely with Catherine and the staff and the council to write the survey to assess what concerns and priorities residents have that will help inform us as we move forward in thinking about your needs for the city.
Good. Kevin, any questions? Okay. Ted? Robin?
I just had a quick question in reading the proposal. How is the number of 300 developed for the surveys for a community our size?
So we interview a sample that we believe will give us a representative number of constituents, of residents, with a margin of error that will be accurate to look at a small group to generalize across the entire population. So in a community the size of this, we believe that 300 is a good number to get a good look at the overall community. It'll be about a margin of error of 6% or 5.7%, meaning that the results that you get among those 300 interviews will be within 5.7% plus or minus of what we would have obtained had we interviewed every member of the community.
Okay.
I might add that when statewide polls are done, the typical sample size is between 800 to 1,000 respondents. So 300 is perfectly fine to give the council a good snapshot as to the current views.
when you're going to do the surveys, you talked about doing a phone interview and then the internet, and I think I read somewhere that you're looking at probably 10 to 15 minutes for a person to do the survey. Is that correct?
Generally anticipate 15 and sometimes as long as 20.
Okay.
We have found we've had no problem conducting surveys of that length. Generally, members of the community like to talk about how they feel about the community. They feel it's a way to engage them and get their opinions, and generally we aim for around 15 minutes, longer if needed.
Okay, and then
that actually it's much faster online too,
online, yeah,
to survey that length.
Okay, and then my last question, I think you were going to target high propensity voters. Is that in general elections or off-year elections for us?
So we're looking at likely November 2018 voters, because that allows us to look within that population are also your November 2017 voters. So we can look at different voting groups based on turnout levels by taking a slightly broader sample.
Okay, thank you.
Options.
Berwin? No. Go ahead, Ted.
And I just, one of the things, and it caught me on your survey, so you're going to ascertain from the opinion the people that have if this would likely be better for us for this year in November or for 2018's election, correct? Is that what you're going to, some of the questions you're going to formulate from this opinion survey that you're going to do?
We can break down the results among voters in all different ways. We can look at your residents, including by their vote history, their likelihood to vote in different elections. So you can look at it in different ways.
Okay, so that information will come back to us so we can make that determination. Okay, thank you.
Now, if I got this right, Catherine, you're going to be the project manager? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, the Lou Edwards Group functions as a lead consultant to help the city staff quarterback the process from start to finish.
Let's see if I can ask this correctly, that if I'm in opposition of a sales tax or any tax revenue measure, okay, and at the same time I understand our infrastructure needs, what else is there that I won't support a sales tax 100%, but I understand the needs we have. So what are the other solutions? What are the other options?
Yes.
From your perspective.
Thank you. So first of all, again, I do want to underscore the fact that the study will be designed to test a variety of issues, including constituent priorities, satisfaction, vision of the city, of which revenue options is only one component. Within that component, we generally do not advise that a city evaluate more than 2 options within one single survey instrument, as doing so will dilute the responses, so to speak. For my cities that have significant infrastructure and public safety needs, but particularly the infrastructure piece, as you may be aware, there are limited options, funding options available to cities. Besides the general or special purpose sales tax revenue, the most other common funding mechanism that can deliver capital funds to the extent needed would be a 2/3 requirement general obligation bond measure, similar to the bond measure that we quarterbacked for Corona Norco Unified in 2006, Measure U. Of course, the school districts in California enjoy a lower threshold of 55% for passage, which at this time local governments do not.
Right. And I'm kind of saying that from the third person in a way that, I mean, I do firmly believe that it's up to the residents to decide.
Oh, Mayor, if I might.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that Obviously, from what I've seen from the outside looking in, the city has a strong tradition of responsible fiscal stewardship and fiscal prudence. And so one of the goals of the study would be to evaluate constituent perspectives from the standpoint of perhaps they feel that infrastructure should not be a funding priority at this time. And if that is the will of the people, we would so straightforwardly advise you. On the other hand, I do find that in my communities where the cities are well managed, they have been fiscally prudent and accountable with their dollars. From the infrastructure side, we do find a concern frequently among constituents that they do not wish for the needs to become more expensive in the future. And that, of course, is a danger, if you will, of having significant infrastructure needs. They only add up and become more expensive in the future unless addressed.
And I did want to say I appreciate the earlier conversation I had with you where we did discuss some of the thoughts on whether it was general purpose, if it was a specific need, oversight committees and sunset clauses and all that good stuff, that this will all be taken into consideration in these surveys to get a real good feel of what our residents. Good, okay. So, any other comments, questions? Andy, any? I know you guys got planes to catch, so.
If I can, and this is directed more at Andy and or the staff, confirm that the staff here will get a copy of that survey, so just the questions of what we're going to ask, we'll have that?
Yeah, she just stated that the questions will be drafted in consultation with staff and perhaps City Council.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I had one more question, and this may be a staff question. In any tax measure, okay, am I correct, city staff is not allowed to promote? We can only, there's a certain direction that staff can. Well, if you give me the legal read, but my question more was, does council follow that same?
The general rule is that simply that cities or public agencies can't spend money promoting or opposing ballot measure. That doesn't mean, obviously, that you can't take a position as individuals. You can take positions as a council, as long as you don't spend city money. You can also spend city money doing educational programs. There's always a debate about what counts as education versus what counts as trying to convince somebody, but you can produce documents that are straightforward and don't promote passage of the measure, and you can do the same thing as a city council.
Mayor, I might add that we have enjoyed a very close collaboration with city attorneys for other local government clients and look forward to doing so in your case. It is my confidence that the council and the community at large will find the survey results interesting and comprehensive. And as this study is being paid for with public funds, it will be balanced. So there will be a variety of perspectives and issues evaluated in the study.
Any further questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Andy?
Nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Good to meet you. Anything else you want to add?
Nothing to add.
Would anyone like to make a motion? Let's do this. Let's do on item 2C, a motion for item 2C.
Council members Hannah, Grunmeyer, Bash,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then 2D.
Motion to approve.
Councilmembers Hannah, Grunmeyer, Bash.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Cheryl, 2A.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, I pulled this item just to note that the regular meeting minutes of February 15th were completed, and I'm requesting that the council approve those minutes tonight. The joint study session minutes between the City Council and Planning Commission meeting on January 30th were not completed in time for approval this evening, and so I am requesting continuance of those minutes to the next meeting of March 15th.
Okay, that's a good question.
Or consideration of approval.
I'll make a motion to accept Cheryl's recommendation.
Councilmembers Hannah? We can do a motion for both if you wish to. Are you wishing to abstain from the February 15th? Okay. And you're to continue that for the next meeting. Okay. Councilmember Grunmeyer. Councilmember Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 2E. Ted?
Yeah, Chad, I'm going to beat you up on this a little bit. And I know I have a problem with this, and this goes back to my history with the Sheriff's Department, the 800 megahertz system, when it was first presented to the county that, oh, we can cover all of Riverside County for X amount of dollars. And that thing ended up being 10 years and a lot of extra money to fix it. I know you weren't here back then, but I went through my Streets and Trails minutes and agendas in 2000 and October 6, 2008, when AMI was first talked about, the water meter program, 2009 updates. From then, the public director saying, oh, we're going to get it installed, it's going to work smoothly and things like that. And here we are, 2017, and we're being told that it doesn't, because we need new radio bases for this, for another $43,000. And I don't put you on the spot, but somewhere there should have been a performance contract that when we first put this in and approved it, and I'm sure there was, that said that this thing will work. And now we're asking for another $43,000 because it doesn't work, or they can't read it. I mean, I don't know if you had the original contract or not.
Yeah, excuse me, we looked into the information. Again, what I should start with is that the original propagation study, which did the radio reads and whatnot, did recommend that there should be 3 base stations. What I have not been able to determine is why the city did not accept their recommendation and only build 2 base stations and instead used repeaters to try to piggyback those signals from the area that we're talking about now. So the original proposal from the contractor did recommend we have 3 base stations. We only installed 2. So this is actually bringing us into compliance with what was originally recommended, because we have suffered in regards to not getting our signals in consistently from the hillside area, the hills areas that are beyond the Wiley property. So there was original recommendation was to have a base station there, but the city elected to not do that. I do not have the information of who elected to not do it or why. I have asked staff regarding that, but have not got frankly, a concrete answer. At this point, regardless of that, my goal is to fix the issue that we're currently dealing with and apparently have been dealing with since the beginning, as far as having signals drop off in those areas. And this is the way to solve that. This will confidently solve that issue for us. And that's my recommendation at this point, to go forward in order to mitigate the issues we're having now and have it operate as it's always intended to operate. We do anticipate to have meter signals drop off but it's for specific reasons, i.e. vehicles parking over a meter or a water-filled box or a gopher eats some wires. Those things we investigate when we get signals. Right now, we're just getting a lot of meters, not signals coming in simply because they can't reach a repeater, or the repeater can't get the signal out because of the hillside. But we have done the analysis, determined that these addition of this base station, which was originally recommended, will resolve that issue.
Well, thank you for restoring my faith in our selection process, and shame on those that didn't approve of the original plan. Because some engineers said we needed it, and who knows who made the decision. With that satisfies my answer, and it's too bad we didn't do it right the first time. So I move to approve unless somebody else has questions.
Council members Hannah? Yes. Grunmeyer? Yes. Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton? Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, that should complete City Council consent items. So let's jump back to City Council communications and reports. Robin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This last week on Sunday, I was able to attend the Crystal Apple Awards with Councilman Bash over at the LDS Church at the Corona Stake, and they recognized 5 teachers from Corona Norco Unified School District that are selected by students in their seminary classes for portraying the values consistent with what the children are learning in seminary, and teachers that have reached out and touched those kids and made a difference in their lives. So it was a really great evening to honor some of the best in the teaching profession, and I was glad to be able to go. And then Monday, we had our unload meeting, and we learned about internet safety for students and children. A great presentation by Deputy Thompson, a ton of information. And I would like to encourage folks, if you are interested in being a part of Unload, we would gladly welcome you. Unload is United Norconians for Life Over Drugs and Alcohol. However, Lieutenant Briddick is kind of spreading the information. We'll be looking into human trafficking and some of those things that are affecting our youth. And we brought up a little bit of that the other day with the internet stuff and some of the health and safety issues that our children are facing, that if you're not around children on a regular basis, you would really be kind of shocked to know what our young people have to deal with these days. So please, if you're interested in being a part of the solution or helping with that, our next meeting will be, I believe, the second week in April after school district officials come back from spring break. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Robin. Ted?
Yeah, the LAFCO meeting was canceled due to the possible lack of forum on February 23rd, and I'd like to share this with you. This past February 23rd, Mayor Newton and myself, along with staff and the city manager, met with our annual visit by Congressman Ken Calvert, and we discussed several things, but a particular note was the Hamner Bridge Replacement Program project, which we kind of beat him up a little bit and said, make sure the money is there when we want it. So hopefully that will happen. I think he assured us pretty much it's going to be there. So for those that are interested, yes, as long as he's in office, we probably all have that. We also talked the EPA grant award in the base realignment and closure and concerning the Navy base, but for a big interest for most of you is community mailboxes. The congressman was very instrumental in helping one of our neighboring cities, the city of Menifee, get some of their mailboxes replaced. So naturally, being the good residents we are, I said, how about ours? And his office has agreed to look into it and help facilitate getting some of these damaged mailboxes done. I think that was a very good meeting we had with him. As far as with our Veterans Committee, I want to remind everyone on March 29th at 9 a.m., we're going to have a welcome home to the Vietnam veterans at our George Ingalls Memorial. All veterans are welcome to attend, and we welcome you back. And as far as the RICWA meeting, I was not able to attend as I was with the congressman, so I'll refer it to Chad if there's anything unusual coming up.
In that meeting, they pretty much just accepted the auditor's report, but they did discuss a future meeting where there will be discussion of a refund that is going to be owed to the city of Norco regarding some overbillings. That will be discussed at your meeting on March 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Was there any discussion at RICWA on the petition to change?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. And no new dates or status?
No, it's pretty much status quo.
Thank you. Is that all, Ted? Kevin?
As Robin said, I also attended the Crystal Apple. It was a nice event. I was at Unload also. It was really a shock to me to find out how many high school kids are arrested for misuse of the internet. I had no idea. Amazing. I sit on the board of directors for the Corona Regional Medical Center, and they were supposed to buy a piece of land, and they were supposed to build this huge medical center adjacent to the $250 million they're already putting into their stroke center, their new ER and stuff. And the city of Corona, for some reason, sold the land to somebody else. So we're in a position now as board of directors to wonder if they're going to expand the hospital to the extent that they wanted to. It does have the stroke center, which is really amazing. They've got all kinds of MRI equipment. I mean, what they've done at that hospital is phenomenal. And the reason I sit on that board is because that is our hospital to in the event of a catastrophic incident. Also, they have a place for seniors, people that are really sick. It's one of the few care facilities that accepts government checks, essentially. And so a lot of Norconians use that, and I don't quite know what to do about Corona. I guess we can't really get involved in that, but it's really disappointing because the plans are to make that more than just a community hospital. This may now just make it a community hospital. So I'm a little disappointed about that. I went to the Unity Luncheon, which is sort of an offshoot. Unload is actually an offshoot of Unity, and had some awards given there, which was really nice. I also had the opportunity, which was kind of nice, to go to the accreditation dinner and to meet some of the people that are actually grading, and Robin knows more about this than I do, but actually grading the school. And all I heard was positive comments from the judges. I guess they're called judges, Robin, or coaches, or what are they called? Yeah, you know it's good when two of them are asking, is it hard to get a job there? So I thought that was a good, interesting comment. I'm actually on the League of Cities to plan for the next coming up big League of Cities event. I'm on the planning committee for that because I made the mistake of complaining. I went to the Silver Lakes experience, which was a lot of fun. I didn't realize Ted was so involved in getting horses to walk over obstacles and stuff. That was a really nice event. I didn't know that. I was impressed. I mean, you got that horse to go over that thing. I was impressed. What was really neat is that you didn't realize you were surrounded by soccer. And that is what was really cool. You didn't know. And it was a really nice event. $8. The meal was great. I also dropped by, they're prepping for opening day at Norco Girls Softball and the Little League, and it was really cool to see the Norco High football team assisting. In fact, there weren't any girls there. They were helping the NGSL get ready for their opening day at Norco Girls Softball, and the football team was there. And then I got to thinking about it. It's probably a no-brainer for them to help those girls. And then I sit on this kind of informal committee, which is very interesting. They want to push the boundaries of Norco High School. And there's three choices. I'm not really going to get into what the three choices are, but Norco, like when I went to the STEM Academy, it was kind of strange for me because in Eastvale, the groundbreaking, Norco's been doing a lot of that stuff already. The problem Norco has is right now they're sitting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robin, but we're sitting at 1,820 students or 40 students. In order to really keep the programs that we need, we have to sit at 2,400. And if we drop much below where we are now, because people are aging out in Norco, they begin to lose programs, they begin to lose teachers. And because a lot of the other districts, which used to just carte blanche let you transfer into this district, they're trying to keep seats. And so they're not letting people transfer. So it's affecting athletics, it's affecting the different AP classes, it's actually becoming a real problem. So I was at a planning meeting with John Zickafus and the principal and a bunch of people, and they're going to do this whole campaign about why you go to Norco High School, and they're going to tie it into the 50th anniversary of Norco being 50 years old, Norco High School being 50 years old. And there's I put it in my newsletter, but it's also online. If you want to see a really nice video about Norco High School and welcoming the accreditation committee, understand it was done by a sophomore. And it's really good. And I thought, wow, that kid has a future. And just a reminder, since everybody's here, not so much everybody's here, April 7th, we're looking for veterans to come to Norco High School. They're going to be meeting high school kids. The opening is now at 8 o'clock. They just moved it. Be an introduction. The kids will have breakfast with the veterans, all wars. We're bringing people from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, even peacetime. I always hate it when people apologize. Well, I was just a peacetime Marine or whatever. The kids need to know about what you did. And then April 8th, we have the film festival. We're going to 10 o'clock. We'll show 1967 newsreels, then a movie called We Were Soldiers. Right now we have a guy named Ryan Hurst who played the sergeant in that, who's going to be a special guest. And then we're having a forum with Benny Gonzalez has agreed to come, and Ronnie Klein. We'll both be acknowledging them, or the school will be acknowledging them as people who were there, Vietnam veterans. And then after that, Good Morning Vietnam. So and then the Kiwanis has their Lake Norconian run on the 8th. And so maybe try to get to that also. That provides a lot of money for scholarships. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Girls Little League this Saturday, softball. And if you get there early, Councilmember Hannah's buying breakfast for everyone, so it's always an added treat.
March 4th, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to wait till later on the meeting, but I don't want to lose anybody. Jeff Anderson from Rebuilding Warriors will be presenting one of his canines to a U.S. Navy veteran, Brian McKay, who's a U.S. Navy SEAL. And if I can indulge, and this will happen on Saturday, March 4th at 10:30 a.m. They'll start at the facility at 10 a.m. One real quick about Jeff, and for those of you who don't know Jeff and his Rebuilding Warriors, he has generally been helping out California and veterans and local areas and things like that. He has had the opportunity to go to the East Coast and start expanding his program. And I'll tell you his expansion. He was telling me, Mark Cuban, basketball owner, Shark, whatever else TV program he's got, invited him to rappel during a basketball game, one of the pro basketball games, from the ceiling with his dog down on the court. And Jeff, who is actually a parachutist and dog, says, no, I won't do it. And Jeff, you got to know Jeff. He goes, basketball fans aren't patriotic enough, but I'll rappel during one of your hockey games because those are my people. So, Jeff, somebody is going to rappel with the dog during the game, but this helps out the Rebuilding Warrior program. It's shown the fact that Jeff has now started to give, he's got a lot of contact of Navy veterans, especially SEAL Team 6 members. They have found his program, and these guys need the little extra for what they've been through. So, Norco boy does well, okay? So, yeah, and Jeff is, like Eric would know, he's retired, medically retired, RSO. He worked Moreno Valley, where he was shot, and he's been a good guy. And like I said, his wife is also a canine handler. She worked the Super Bowl, so back in Texas, they flew her to handle a dog back there. So we've got some really good people in town, and if you get a chance, come out Saturday, March 4th, support Jeff and the Rebuilding Warrior program. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking me the time.
Thanks, Ted. Just a couple of things briefly. The City Council letter to the California Public Utilities Commission went out the other day. This is to oppose the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project and the Circle City Substation Project. Last week I did have the pleasure of speaking to Rural, and nice small group, and basically we just kind of did a review of the strategic plan and was able to walk out in one piece, so it was safe. Chino de Salter Authority Board meeting is tomorrow night, so I will have a report at the next council meeting on that agenda. Okay, so we'll move into item 4, public comments. Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor. Let's see, we have Bonnie Slager.
Evening, Bonnie.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to remind you that not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, March 11th, is the Norco Horsemen's Casino Night, our fundraiser to raise money for scholarships for FFA students to go on to further education. We give $1,000 scholarships to these people, so I hope to see all of you there next Saturday night. And for anybody in the audience or whoever, I do have tickets with me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
That concludes public comments.
I was going to also say, if you want to, I have sponsorship forms. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. We'll move into public hearings. Item 5A, this is an ordinance 1016, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is a follow-up to previous discussions, workshops that the staff has conducted with the Stuck Committee and the City Council regarding the potential implementation of speed humps, speed tables. This is, as you recall, the council elected due to safety concerns related to fire and police response, and also being in compliance with some other city codes, to elect to not allow the installation and prohibit the use of speed humps or speed tables within the streets, public streets within the city of Norco. So this code amends the current chapter 12 by 04, which is curbs, gutters, and street paving, and adds section 12.04.055, which prohibit the prohibition of speed humps, speed bumps, speed humps, and speed tables. And I'd request that this item be approved in order to adopt the council's recommendation previously.
Thank you, Chad. Does council have any questions of staff? Kevin?
How will this affect the road going to the River Road development, where we told them we would put in a speed bump or do some sort of mitigation for traffic?
It does not affect those per council's direction, that those speed humps will be grandfathered in.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
I got one. So the speed bumps and humps that are on 2nd Street or on Del Mar, yeah, those will stay, correct?
Yes, all existing speed humps, speed humps or speed tables that are currently there will remain in place until such time we do any type of road improvements. They would not be put back.
Okay, thank you.
Rob? Berwin? And what's our reasoning then, Chad, that if a existing street has speed tables, okay, and that down the road we rehabilitate that street, why wouldn't we put those tables back in?
Primarily because it would be a new condition, and our goal is to eliminate that future maintenance and also be consistent with what the current code is now. Again, what we would be doing is if the council did not want to and elected to not have speed humps, speed tables in the city, currently right now, we would go through and actually remove those. But we're basically grandfathering, allow them to stay until such time that we redo any of the street surfaces and would not put them back. That is our recommendation. Because that way it makes it consistent with policy. We're really simply just keeping them there because they already exist, but at such time when we remove them, we would not put them back in our design. because that would make it then consistent with the current policy.
But then it almost seems to me that if something's grandfathered in, it ought to be grandfathered in forever.
Not my opinion. It's normally, in that case, I would grandfather in, they're allowed to stay, but for example, if it's just my recommendation that it not stay, and because of the fact we go through and do those, it's additional improvements that we would otherwise not allow in any other street. And that's my recommendation, is in going in the future, not continue those improvements. And that way, because mainly it keeps it consistent with the policy that's being adopted here.
I have a problem with that part.
Because I guess the question is, we've not gone through and evaluated those existing streets, whether or not those speed humps or speed tables are actually needed or necessary. They were put in at a time, but, and that's my concern, is because we didn't actually look at them to say that they were needed or necessary or an effective traffic calming measure. They're actually not in compliance with our current, I apologize what the name was, what's the study that I referenced before, I can't remember, the current road circulation study.
The circulation element?
Element, yeah, specifies in there.
Element, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember what it was called. It does indicate that, again, the use of speed humps, speed tables is not recommended. So again, it would not also be in compliance with that current condition. That current condition could change when the element maybe gets updated. But like I said, for my purposes as the director in managing the streets, in order to make all streets consistent, at the time when we redo a street, I would recommend not putting that element back. But for right now, I'm also not advocating I go out and remove them just to make it consistent. It's there, it's been there. I would recommend only at that time would we then remove that element and not put it back.
Steve, when was our circulation element last looked at?
2000.
2000.
It was last adopted, 2000.
In 2000. And when is it scheduled to be looked at again and readopted?
Well, it's time permitting. It needs to get done along with 5 of the other elements, so we just have to do it.
So our circulation element goes back to 2000.
Yes.
The last time it been looked at. Okay.
There's also one other issue that the staff report doesn't bring up, but that I've given this speech before, probably give it again, that these devices are not permitted, they're not authorized devices under the state code. What that means is that we, depending upon the circumstances, don't get design immunity if there's an accident and someone is injured and files suit against the city. Design immunity means that if we comply with the state rules, that we're immune from liability for design of the roadway. With these traffic calming devices, I mean, cities have rolled the dice, but you lose the design immunity.
Okay. Yeah, any other?
Yeah, one other thing, Chad, on this, on those areas where we do have the existing speed humps and tables, would that preclude us from looking at any other traffic calming measures as a replacement for those that would be approved by the state? I mean, wouldn't we could target those areas? I don't know how to do it on ordinance, but definitely when we look at those, we need to consider at least some kind of a mitigation or something else there that would, as engineers progress, as we change time, new things come up all the time. So we're not, if a street had one in there and something that slowed it down or was meant to slow the traffic down, we can find ways to utilize more approved measures, could we not?
Certainly. I mean, as we do any street improvement project, we're evaluating any type of need for traffic calming, whether it be specialized striping, additional signage, speed feedback signs. They're all passive measures that allow us to try to, calm the speeds of vehicles going through. So any project that goes through that we're doing now, we're looking at that to see what needs to be done in those areas. And it certainly would not preclude looking at anything.
Okay.
let's go ahead. This is a public hearing, and I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have one card. Patricia Overstreet.
Hi, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Well, you've sort of danced around my question. I was wondering, since I live on a street with 3 speed tables for the last 18 years, we appreciate those on our section of town. And I'm glad to know that they may stay until they need to be replaced. Evidently, they've done such a wonderful job of even painting the stop signs and the bump signs, and the stripes haven't worn out in 18 years. Hopefully that means we haven't had that much traffic, because I notice at 3rd Street, the intersection at 3rd and Valley View, those are newly painted and they wore out in about 3 months, but that's heavily trafficked. So thank you for that consideration, and I hope the speed humps stay, the tables, and I want you to know I've personally called the 911 to the house 3 times in that 18 years, and those big fire trucks have had no trouble going over the tables to rescue my husband. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
That concludes the comments.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring that back to council for any further discussion. Erwin?
No.
Robin?
No.
Ted? Kevin? Okay, so the last part that just bothers me on this is in the staff report where we do talk about the circulation plan. The city circulation plan states city should not encourage traffic calming, street closure, and unnecessary stop signs at the expense of emergency response. And it kind of goes back to your statement to Ted that this isn't going to inhibit any other traffic calming measures that we discuss going forward.
As long as they're not
This is specific to
a physical impediment to travel, i.e. physical, where, again, which we're talking speed humps,
tables,
but
right?
as far as redirecting or putting medians in or additional signage or special striping, all those don't block the path or inhibit the flow of traffic, i.e. for the emergency response vehicles. That's the only type of element I would say we would steer away from.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Does anyone care to make a recommendation? A motion?
Motion to approve.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco adding Norco Municipal Code Section 12.04.055 prohibiting speed bumps, speed humps, and speed tables, Code Amendment 2017-03.
Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Hannah?
Yes.
Bash?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman?
Yes.
Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 5B, ordinance number 1017, first reading. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd have to apologize for this item in regards to, normally when we do revisions of existing ordinances, we try to do a red line and kind of show you what changes or not, but as I was doing this, there was so much change, it became just all red, and the point of this change was really to update the municipal code. It's so old, it's got a lot of old information in relation to past practices. Our previous water department even has references to water district, old fees, and what we really try to do is reorganize this and expand it. We expanded the definitions to have a lot more clarity about what we do and what we're involved with. So for the purposes of not only staff, public works staff, but also finance staff, so we can clearly define our customers and the issues that we deal with. We eliminate, obviously, reference to the water department because now we're all public works, so all those references changed. We expanded the billing information greatly, so provide a lot of clarity to the customers and, again, to staff as far as what we do on a day-to-day basis, be able to explain to folks what they're billed, why, the information that we need, how they're going to be billed, how they can dispute bills, the way we operate and function as an organization. A lot more clarity there so they can clearly understand how we do what we do every day. We eliminated reference to old rates and fees. Part of this was actually to eliminate all the actual references to specific numbers, i.e. the fees or the rates. We talk about the fees, we talk about the different deposits, but we never put a specific number in there because we want to put that all in a fee schedule, which is what we will adopt in the next meeting that will go along with this ordinance. So all the fees that we currently have or deposits, we can always update those on an annual basis, and we never have to change the municipal code, which is a totally different process. We can always do that by resolution. So we purposely took out any actual reference to a actual number. We just referenced the description of that fee or deposit or rate. And then the last day we added a complete full section regarding cross-connection program. We had very little reference to that. We expanded that greatly to provide specifics in how folks who have to put backflows on their buildings and or even some homes, why they have to do it, what's the issues they need to do, what compliance shall be, how they have to test it, how the city will make sure that those folks stay in compliance, and how we enforce those rules. So we mainly tried to also shape this around so it was a lot user-friendly as far as to find the issues that you're interested in for staff and also the public. It's very easy to read. It has a very logical form. The previous one kind of jumped around after many years of being modified and changed. So this provides a lot of clarity, I think, for both staff and the public as far as what we intend to do every day in our operations and how we do that. So I would recommend council's approval of this modification of this ordinance.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions of staff? Robin?
I have one. It's probably going to be a little silly, but in going through your definitions, you have the jumper.
Mm-hmm.
Does that really happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. When we pull a meter out, folks, and we turn off the meter, folks will cut the lock off and they'll put a plastic PVC pipe in and jump it and basically connect it, and there's no meter there.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I would have never guessed.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
We do it all the time.
I don't get any ideas, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, typically you'll do it on a construction project. When you're setting your meters and your backflows and that, you'll set up a jumper. It's still metered.
I hope not. It should be metered.
It's still metered. Of course it is. Berwin?
No.
Kevin?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I think anything we can do to update our municipal code is really important. So I think you did a really, really good job. I appreciate it. And it's interesting because that caught my eye too. When I moved into my house, there was a huge bunch of just debris between the house next door and my garage. And as I removed it all, I found this big yellow cord. And they had run the cord next door, and it took me about 3 months to clear it away, and had been there for years. I went to the neighbor and I said, "This is plugged into my garage and going to your house." And it was sitting there with one of those strips plugged into stuff, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know where that came from." So anyway, that definitely does happen. But anyway, really good job, and I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Ted, any questions of staff?
No.
Sorry about that.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Cheryl, are there any cards?
No cards submitted for this item.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any discussion and action. Any further comments?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco amending Chapter 14.04 Water System of the Norco Municipal Code, Code Amendment 2017-04.
Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Councilmember Hanna? Yes. Councilmember Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 5C, ordinance number 1018, first reading, ordinance amending Chapter 9.20 fireworks. Eric, are you going to give this report, or Andy?
Eric? I can do it if you want.
Okay, I'll do it. Well, it's actually under Arturo, but he's retired, so. Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. What you have before you tonight, if you recall, over the past several years, our fireworks calls have provided a negative impact upon our citizens and specifically caused harm to our animal keeping lifestyle. Based upon this, we formed a collaborative effort involving the city manager office, the mayor and mayor pro tem, the sheriff's department, the fire department, animal control, and code enforcement. And we strategized in order to be more effective with not only the enforcement but the education aspect. So before New Year's Eve, we launched a plan where we provided a tremendous amount of education regarding the harmful effects of fireworks, and we used our social media to blast that information out. That's one part of the approach. This was basically a two-part approach. The second part of this was to form a group of enforcement officers to go out, which included the Riverside Sheriff's Department, CAL FIRE, and code enforcement to handle the enforcement and go after the violators. And we did witness 4 incidents where those particular violators were cited. So part of our after action and discussions regarding this activity, we looked at the fines associated with not only the safe and sane, but also the more dangerous, what are usually referred to as explosive or professional grade fireworks. Having that in mind and in comparison with other cities, we decided that it would be best to have more of an effect in the penalty phase is to raise the fines associated with violations and to look at recovering some of the cost associated with the enforcement that was required to go after the violators. So what we're looking at is increasing the fine for the safe and sane from $500 to $1,000, and then the more explosive or more dangerous fireworks from $1,000 to $2,000. And again, we're hoping that with our education, our social media, moving forward, we'll be able to have more of an impact with those who choose to launch the illegal fireworks, and if they know what the repercussions are, and know, in fact, we were successful in identifying violators this past year, that hopefully they'll give it a second chance and decide to not do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for the lieutenant? Ted?
So Eric, from this, I take it we're going to continue on with the 4th of July program, and as far as the enforcement, like we had planned.
Yes, and as part of the debrief with the city manager, he's been very adamant that we continue with our enforcement, and we will have pre-meetings probably starting 2 months out to get everybody on board, all the stakeholders identified, and to schedule the enforcement. And we know that July 4th, the holiday, is tricky because it's not just one day of the activity. It's more like a week. So we're going to have to figure that out and develop a schedule for deployment.
And then I know Arturo put this together, and he did a pretty good job when he did it, but just for the residents here, know that these fines are pretty much in line with what surrounding communities are doing. I know the city of Riverside up there is also correct.
I believe so, yes, and I believe that was in the press enterprise. And also, Arturo did some research, and that was what his findings were, is that upping our fine and our bail amounts to be more consistent with other cities.
Which, in a sense, should be a deterrent, hopefully.
That's the idea, yes.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Thank you. I'll go ahead now and open.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'm sorry, Robin.
Okay, just real quick, and I'm not sure who this would be directed to, but in the ordinance itself, in 9.20.010, under definitions, I have a concern with how specific the references to the process of slaughtering. There's specific animals listed there. So it goes on to say that the discharge of any gun or rifle in the process of slaughtering, and then it talks about cattle, sheep, or swine for food purposes or humane purposes. I'm just wondering if that can be changed to livestock instead of listing, because when I looked at that, I know that more than that's probably slaughtered for food purposes in Norco. So I think it would be safer just to list livestock.
I have no issue with that. It's out of my realm of expertise, but. Although remember that what's prohibited is, what's exempted is a weapon doing it. I mean, you don't kill chickens with a shotgun.
Well, yeah, no, I'm familiar with that. But you don't have goats listed, or, you know what I mean, so.
No, this allows a
chickens would be
discharge of a gun.
poultry.
Yeah, that's my point, is that, and and I'm not an expert either, but the intention was to address those types of animals that you might slaughter, that you'd, God forbid, shoot them with a gun, as opposed to other animals that you might slaughter that clearly you wouldn't use a firearm for.
Or for humane purposes.
Or for humane purposes, right.
What does the rest of council?
But otherwise, there's no, I mean, from the legal point of view, there's no issue with changing it to livestock.
Okay.
So, Robin, you'd like to, in the process of...
Just strike cattle, sheep, and swine.
Okay.
And replace it with livestock.
Correct, that would be my intent, yeah.
Berwin, you're fine with that? Yeah. Ted? Kevin?
Yeah,
if I can just add,
one of the things is that this is, we're talking about, because it even talks about the amount of grains in here and for this. So I think the other part of it, Robin, in the rest of the council, when they talk about firearms, discharge of firearms on their other ordinance, it will list that. So I don't want to have people get confused on it too. Maybe we need to take a chance and look at that ordinance too, because this is specific when they're talking about more than 100th grains of explosive compounds. So they're talking about a specific discharge of a firearm. What kind of firearm? I mean, I know what you're saying.
Well, isn't that in reference to those little paper caps, though?
Yeah, they're talking about that. Yeah, so
I think that's separate from the discharge of the rifle.
no, I agree with you on
Okay.
that. I just agree with you that there is a separate ordinance with the separation on discharge of a firearm. So we not, at least that way we're in.
So they match in both spots.
and I think that's how the Food and Agriculture Code defines that particular section. And doesn't say livestock, but swine. So, because it goes into the use of a firearm for slaughter or whatever, or humane. And so I think that's where we took it from, was the Food and Agriculture Code. But I don't think it really matters if we change it to livestock.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and change it. Anything else, Robin?
No, that was it.
Okay, so I'll go back to opening the public hearing. Cheryl?
No cards on this item.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to for any further discussion. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, California, amending Chapter 9.20 fireworks of the Norco Municipal Code, increasing penalties for violations, Code Amendment 2017-05.
Council members Grunmeyer, Hannah, Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move into item 6A, verbal update on North Drive traffic calming concept plan. Chad?
Go ahead, just do from here. Got to warm up first. It's got to warm up. There it comes. Oh. All right, thank you very much. This is intended to be an update, as a request of council to come back with at least a concept plan of finishing off what is the last part of our original traffic calming measures that we're doing on North, on Crestview, California, 6th Street. This is the last component. As you may recall, on North Avenue, some of the main things we did, because that was the primary area we're getting speeding from Riverside County coming into Norco, is we did the rest in red at Crestview and North. That's basically where the light is in the red mode, so people approach, it will not turn green until they're pretty much close, so they're at least slowing them down. We also, but prior to that, have the dynamic feedback sign that, again, gauges their speed, gets their attention at that location. And then we also have another feedback sign that's in the median island right there in this area. And those measures were put in place to, again, to slow folks down. We can say definitively, based off of the data that we have, that we certainly have slowed traffic down. We certainly still get complaints of people that it's rest in red, and why is it not red, or why is it not green? It used to be green, so obviously it's working, and we're okay if it bothers people. So that's good, and our data does show, because we did cross data using our temporary feedback signs downstream of these locations, and it does show that the speeds are staying below the average speed is staying below 40, which is the post in that area. Certainly people still are speeding. I'm not going to say that they're not, but we're gotten our average down to the 40, which is good. So we have certainly accomplished our goal in trying to reduce speeds. Part of that element was that we hadn't done yet, that at my direction I wanted to wait on to see how the feedback signs worked, was doing the vertical element. And this is where this section gets involved, where we're trying to create visual impediments by having, or not impediments, but visual obstructions on the drivers, whether it's in the median or on the parkway, that narrows their vision area, where they may subconsciously slow down and want, because they see either a fence or brick or boulders or some sort of physical structure on either side. Because we've already done the narrowing by putting the median islands on there, having one way each direction on north. So again, and part of that desire for me was to determine whether or not we need to do additional measures and spend additional money. If our initial attempts have reached our goal, then it was kind of a decision, do we want to continue to spend money if we've kind of reached our goal of trying to slow down traffic. But this is that follow-up, and I want to give you information to find out what we could do, what those costs would be, and get direction from council on where you would like us to go in regards to this last element of this project. This concept plan was developed by RKA, Dominic and his group. This basically shows you on this first slide here is, and the intent is to show you median island improvements, the marquee sign, which would go right here. This is the marquee sign, the entry sign, the monument. We currently have one on Hamner, entering the city near Detroit. This is what we basically modeled, the exact same one. We're using the same design. Would be placed at this median island coming in. It's going to be smaller because that median island is fairly narrow, so we've had to scale it down. So it doesn't look exactly the same. I think our existing one, Hamner, has a little offshoot of this little monument here. So we basically kind of narrow it down to fit in the median island. We're going to maintain at least 3-foot clearance between the curb of the median island to the monument. So we're definitely filling that monument up, or that median up with the monument, but it'll be a nice addition. That monument, we estimate, will be about $55,000 to install. Hopefully it comes in less, but that's our preliminary estimate. The other element that was discussed in trying to reduce traffic was changing out the existing wooden trail fence, which you can't really see at night, and putting the current standard, which is the vinyl fencing, which is more reflective at night. And also, actually, we're going to move it in 1 foot from the existing direction, so basically 1 foot off of curb. And so it really would be something you could see pretty readily if you're driving through there. Your lights, especially at night, reflect off of that fence. You'll notice something there, and hopefully it will slow people down. So that replacement will be both sides of north. All that fencing will be replaced. We would certainly salvage everything that is usable and retain that for upkeep of existing wooden fence areas that might fall down, and we can replace either rails or poles. That cost is estimated to be about $18,000 to replace the fence. We would, and that's for installation. We would probably use our court crews because it's cheaper for us to remove it with them than have a contractor remove it. And then we'd also put in rocks in the median. We would try to locate, hopefully, some rocks that are, if not free, but fairly cheap, but conservatively estimated to put rocks in the median area to create the median element of something, physical barrier in there to slow people down in those medians. We've estimated right now about $12,000 to put those. And again, we focused on pretty much anything that was inert. We didn't want to do any actual planting because, again, this is a median that was laid on the existing asphalt. There is no irrigation line or anything like that. We'd have to do all services, and that's additional maintenance that we'd have to maintain. So we're focused on, again, very maintenance-free improvements. The rocks and boulders are certainly, if we get any graffiti, we can go in there and blast those off and remove that material pretty easily. And not having to do upkeep regarding plants or trees for us is beneficial right now. But we're trying to do something at least that improves the look and it doesn't make it barren. We've also looked at putting in gold DG in specific areas and putting headers in to hold that DG to kind of give it, again, a different little bit look rather than just having the dirt. That DG, we estimate, is going to be let's see here, sorry, I think it's going to be about $36,000. Again, that's a conservative estimate. But that, in a nutshell, is the basic plan for right here for traffic calming to get that vertical element. Let me go through here. So again, this is just I guess it won't work. This is just a blow-up of that, what it would look like as far as the monument. We can have the welcome sign. We can also, that center portion there, if we choose to, since it'll be at North and Crestview, we could exchange that center one for actual directional signs to the our facilities that are off of 6th and Crestview. Right now, our directional signs are actually farther down and have people going down California and then back up 6th to get the facilities. So we could certainly put them there if we want to take the welcome sign out, and so people knew, hey, this way to Nellie Weaver or any other facilities, or we just keep the welcome sign. But again, this is what right now it would be set up to designed to look like. Brian, next one. Again, this is what we put in along there. Currently, we have the wooden fence, and we put in the two-rail fence. We'd put it, again, that's about a foot off of the curb. That's what it would look like. So it certainly would, right now it's about 2 feet off, and we would certainly narrow that area there what folks would see as they're driving. And then again, the rocks, we all know what rocks are, but that's kind of what we're looking at. We'd find what we could and put them all over the median. Thank you, Brian. So this part here is another concern that was brought up. It's not directly related to the traffic calming per se. This is more of issues of accidents that have occurred due to drivers not paying attention, running through the stop sign, and actually ending up in this neighbor's yard here. We currently have those large Lincoln blocks right there that protect this person's property because folks come racing down here and crashing into this area. So we were looking at different ways that we might be able to, again, calm traffic down that area. What could we do? Currently, we have the three-way stops in this area. And again, this is the designated truck route that is used in the city, so it certainly gets a lot of use. And we get a lot of cut-through traffic through that area. So initially, in trying to see what we could do, we looked at a roundabout to see what we can do. Basically, to do the roundabout the proper way, it basically encumbers the adjacent property. We need to get property from this homeowner. We would impact our current parkway area here, and it's at a substantial cost. I mean, it's almost, I think it's, what we rated it at was about $500,000 to $700,000 to do it the right way. And this ensures that you have this distance is required, and the size is because of the fact you need to make sure that all the trucks with large trailers can easily get around that turn radius and clear it. We looked at trying to do it smaller, but then it posed other problems with traffic going through here or this direction. But in the end, it's a pretty expensive prospect if we want to do a roundabout. But that was an initial thought that it would work, but it's just not enough space in this area. Thanks, Brian. Then we thought, okay, what if we just put signals in? We'll put streetlights, signals in, and we'll put them here, here, and this direction. So basically, have a three-way signal, and you can control it that way. We do rest in red, like we do at Crestview and North. However, again, that cost is pretty substantial. That's about $250,000 to put those street signals in. Again, pretty expensive. And again, and just a reminder, our current budget for all these improvements that we have in is $100,000. So the work that we were doing from this island to back up to north was about $180,000 to do all that work. And then in addition, getting this work here, it's, again, the roundabout was about $500,000 to $700,000. And this is about $250,000. Brian? So the last concept that RK came up with was to extend this median out and basically put these illuminated stop signs in. We put one here and we put one there. We currently have a stop sign here that has the flashing ball that kind of gets people's attention, but we really want to put it here so that the drivers who are coming this way, intending to make a left, see something physical. Right now there's nothing there. It's very dark in this area. So they were recommending extending this out and then putting a stop sign right here and here. There would be no additional stop signs in this area. It's primarily, this is the area of concern because we're trying to slow down, make sure people slow down so they don't go into this neighbor's home. That's primarily what we're working on and trying to inhibit. This cost to do all this work is, again, additional about $90,000. My recommendation on this is actually to modify it. And if we're going to do an improvement that helps this person out here and remove these Lincoln logs, is basically just do a small median island right there. Don't extend it out. Just do some delineators through here, some domes, truncated domes. You see those bumps, some large ones, so you don't get people cutting across without getting some severe damage on their truck if they try to cut that corner. But that way we eliminate all this cost to extend the median out. We just do a small island right here, put the stop sign in. It would be solar powered, so it would be light up. You can see the solar power panel there, and the same thing here. It'd be a far less cost. It would probably end up being maybe $10,000 to get it done. These stop signs with the solar, they're about $4,000 to $5,000 each. Again, we could lay a small little median island here for about $1,000 and post it in there, and then buy another one. So again, about $4,000 for 2 signs and about $2,000 for staff to put on a small little median island. But that would at least eliminate some of this cost. Because again, right now to do all the improvements that we talked about is $180,000 plus another, like I said, $10,000 here, so it's $190,000. Right now, I currently only have $100,000 in the budget. So the question comes is, with all these recommendations, what does the council like to do? Again, keeping in mind my previous statements in that I believe we have accomplished a good goal in reducing speed there with the current measures we've done. I do think it's important to do the monument sign, and we can get that done within the existing budget. We can do the trail fencing, which I think is a good improvement, and I think we can certainly put the rocks in the median. We may want to eliminate putting the gold DG in there at this time. We can also look at maybe future improvements to that area, but if we certainly put the vertical elements in both sides, in the median and on the parkway, we have done that last task, which was a recommendation of Albert Grover, was to create the vertical element. And then we could probably still, and again, so we basically include the rocks, the fence, and then doing this work here, I think can all be done for the existing budget of $100,000. That's my recommendation at this time, is in those elements, but I would certainly like to get your feedback and give direction so we can move forward on the eventual improvements that you'd like to see.
Thank you, Chad. Kevin, you want to start?
So the monument sign, could it say something like, "Welcome to Norco," and "Slow down, partner, we carry guns," or something like that?
I defer to the attorney on that one.
Yeah. God. I mean, obviously, there's only so much money. I mean, I'm glad to have the monument sign there. But it just seems sort of sad that we have this beautiful sign and then you don't have anything behind it. I know Brian can get rocks all day long, so I'm not too worried about that. I don't know. I mean, how substantially have you slowed traffic, do you think, really? It seems like going toward Riverside, it's slowed.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of excessive speed going east. Our issue was mainly from Riverside coming in. And our data does show, again, on the average speed is 40. Now, obviously, that means you have people below 40 and certain people that are above it.
Right.
So we've certainly seen a reduction in that. Whether or not it meets a certain threshold, it was never been an established threshold as part of this work that it meet a certain level. But I only go by the data that we collect and continue to collect, is it showing that the reduction of speed is consistently around 40 miles per hour.
All right, thank you. That's all right now.
Go ahead, Ted.
I'm concerned on the monument sign. A couple of years ago, when we had measured, what was that thing in Riverside, Nobles Homes? Your M or L, whatever. Yeah, you brought me that great big sign. Well, unfortunately, I stuck it in the medium there. And when I did, it's gone now, it's temporary. It blocked vision. And I'm thinking that monument sign, I want it, I'd like it. I think you're going to create more problem with a lack of vision for the people leaving on Wyatt Circle. They won't be able to see going what's coming, that traffic there, at least if it's a speeding vehicle. As they come through that traffic heading westbound, it's going to catch that, and if somebody's pulling out of off of Wyatt Circle, they won't see them until it's too late. As much as I would like to see it, I think you almost have to put that back on the big medium to do it right and do something progressive as you go through. That's just, I'm not an engineer, but I think you're going to have more problem on the very end.
Are you thinking the monument would go here instead?
Yep, somewhere there. I know it's going to be an easy target for the people when they hit that little raised curb there and launch themselves right into it. Right there. You've seen all the tire marks. I've shown them to you. And hopefully they've slowed down. But I know the residents there off of Pinto and Viceroy, and I've talked to some of them, they're very happy with the signal light there that we've done at Crestview and North, that it's working for them. They can get out, and that's the important part. And you are correct. We didn't do the visual part of this traffic calming measure. To me, I'd rather see a 3-rail high fence to show more visibility. I know it's not in our standard, but just to show that, it shows more restriction than a 2-rail fence. And I'm going to say it, we need a signal light there at California North. And the reason I say that is because the poor folks in California, we owe them something. They've gotten beaten up for several years by prior councils that tried to fix this thing, and then by another prior council that, well, we bought all this land, we're going to fix it, and then didn't do it. And now we're stuck with it because that's a thoroughfare. It's a truck route, and even so, we've had this conversation. And that's how they get to Interstate 15 to Riverside. So unless we start slowing that traffic down and the signal and the signal lights, and I'm looking at it and say, is $250,000, is that too much price to pay for slowing that traffic down? Fellow council person said, hey, slow them all the way up to Riverside. I don't care if it takes them that long. It slows them down. And I think that we owe that when we talk about this thing in North, and I'm getting off on what my point is. But I just think on visual, and I'd have to be an engineer to look at that to see if we're going to have a problem on the visibility aspect of that.
For the monument?
For the monument sign. You look at there and you look down there and you can't see around it, and if we cause an accident, we're in bigger trouble. So that's my point. Thank you.
Robin?
Ted brought up my concern with the placement of the monument sign and being able to see to make a safe turn onto North Drive. So
now we currently, if you may recall, in right about there, we currently have one sign that is, I think it's the oldest one. Again, we could probably put something, if you want to put it there, and it's a welcome sign, but it's off, it's kind of out of the way. But there's really no other place other than putting it back here, and whether, again, it's council prerogative if you want to put it back here. There's certainly the space.
Yeah, I don't know. And I will say about the other sign that you're referencing, I like it because there's very few cities that still have those, and it has all the organizations on it. So I kind of have a fondness for that sign that's over there, the one that you're talking about. But yeah, so I'll see what the other council members say.
Berwin?
Were you talking about putting the monument sign that they're concerned about the vision?
We would place it right here, at that first median, as an entry, because that's the entry to the city. We'd place it right here in that median. And Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman was talking about that as folks exit Wyatt or trying to get across, that they can't see traffic because the monument would be blocking their view. It's a pretty good distance up there, and I don't know, we'd have to go out there and look and see if it's a visual impediment in that distance here.
All right, if you put it between California and Wyatt, closer to Wyatt, no, between California, move it to your left, right along in there. What'd be wrong with that?
And that's what was Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman was recommending, is maybe put it in here.
Yeah, it shouldn't bother anybody there, and they're not that tall, are they?
It's 12 feet tall.
Okay, I was thinking about the shorter ones, 12 feet, yeah. Well, that might be a good spot to put it there, and if anybody takes aim at it and hits it, I guess the insurance will fix it, but I'm sure somebody would do that, because I saw an old boy coming in one day, and I don't know what he was looking at, but he got up in that median and took his whole wheel off on the left side of his truck there. So that looks to me like the best location instead of putting it up there by Crestview. I think that'd be the one I'd support right there, that drawing there.
Anything else, Berwin? No. Okay. Got a couple of questions. Back on that, let's stay on the sign for a minute. What if it moved all the way to the left where we have the concrete dead men at this time?
Over here?
Yeah.
And again, we do own that parkway area. We could put it there, but, and is you intending to be that our new blockade?
Dual purpose.
That's far more expensive to replace. But yeah, I mean, we technically own that. I mean, there is I guess a trail here. I mean, it's not really well defined. I wouldn't want to impact the trail, but
I guess what the premise with the sign is this is a gateway entrance, and our gateway entrance today, it looks like a demolition course. And of course, then it ends up with, concrete blocks as the last result. I'm okay with that center area. I guess that leads to my next question on, well, Brian, the sign that we have on Hamner, what was our cost on that, the 12-foot by 12-foot? Just as a guesstimate, do you remember?
I think it's actually bigger.
It actually, the numbers on that, the bid that came in, it was actually for $40,000. The other bidders were $60,000. So again, our estimate on here was just being conservative, not knowing.
Well, I disagree with all your numbers. This is, please tell me Dominic put these together and not you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's construction in heaven. So, so the sign could be scaled down in size.
It is already scaled down. It's actually, it's smaller than the existing one, as far as the height is the same, that we've scaled down.
Right, you could further scale it down.
This size is the height is the same, the width has gone down.
Yeah, you're 12 by 12 in this drawing.
Right.
But it could be scaled down.
Even more, yes.
Right, okay. So let's go back to the existing curb that's in place today. Does that remove the islands?
The curb? well, the island, again, is just laid on the existing asphalt, so it could be removed.
Because I think that's one of the causes of the problems there is where that island is today, it forces the vehicles closer to the horse trail. So, and if that curb is just laid on existing, to me, that should be removed. I think it's just its natural tendency. It shoves you over towards the horse trail. We want to be going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, that was the general intent, is just to narrow it down. And in this case, since you're starting up here narrowing down, you're continuing that versus you narrow here and then you're going to push people this way.
Right.
Again, you can do that. It's just we'd want to create some sort of physical impediment that makes sure they go that way, not just striping, but actual, maybe we'd have to do a physical impediment, on this side, pushing out this side of the curb. So again, we're directing them farther away from the trail. Okay. Otherwise, they would naturally just go straight. Because again, we could put striping in, but it may not stop them from just going straight anyway, because that's their current path.
I mean, for the first look today, okay. I mean, it's, as far as the landscaping effect, whether it's DG or whatever, or just a desertscape, there's plenty of rocks in Norco. But Ted's hit on something with the signalization there, that could be more of a safety factor, but the folks that live on California that can't back out of their driveways, that gives them some breathing room, I would think. I think we need a little more work on this. One thing I'd like to suggest, we did this with the storm drains over on Reservoir and 3rd, and it was basically a neighborhood meeting, and I think we ought to reach out to the residents in that area and the residents on California and have a couple of different examples and try to get their impact or their opinions on, they're the ones that are going to be living with it. The other issue I have is you keep referring back to saying we only have a $100,000 budget, and I'm going to contest this to the very end, that this money was come out of originally out of the redevelopment where we had $1 million unspecified uses, and in the previous budget we had approximately $200,000 plus for this area, and $100,000 approximately was transferred to another account. And to limit this project for $100,000, it's wrong, because we had that money and it was transferred out of that redevelopment money. That money needs to come back.
Well, to clarify,
and be spent on this.
Just to clarify your point, yes, it was actually, original budget was $300,000. We spent $100,000 on the various improvements. The $100,000 you're speaking of was transferred to do the Bluff project, which the council wanted to be completed.
Right.
So we used existing money that was available to complete the Bluff trail fence replacement project. Right. So that money, was transferred to another project that did get completed.
Good.
So
we're going to find a way to put money back to do this, because this is just as important. But I don't want to end up with a half-assed, unfinished project that doesn't do the job. So that's kind of my opinion. Sure, Kevin.
On a bigger level, we fought 2 projects in the Hidden Valley area, and Ted kind of made me realize, just philosophically, that is the last buffer zone if they ever do build there, and I hope they won't, except what they can. How do we strangle that? I mean, maybe what we really ought to be doing, and Greg's maybe touched on this a little bit too, maybe what we really need to do is understand that right up front, we want people to know they need to find another way. And if we can strangle that in some way, maybe we do need to spend some more money on this particular area. I mean, it really isn't cool to have those stones there. Maybe we got to put something else there. But maybe starting all the way back to Crestview and just find a way that we really discourage people from, I went to a street in Indiana, when we were back there, and there was one whole street, they slowed you down. You know where you come out of Costco and they got the little pebble things for the blind people now? They had a whole street that was like that. So if you went over 30 miles an hour, you go like this. I don't know if that's legal, but I'm wondering if we should really think about, we make a statement by saying we're protecting the border. And even our monument sign, I was sort of not kidding when I say welcome and slow down, partner, something like that, to say you're in horse country. And I think Greg's right. I think we need to really think what are we really trying to do here? And I think part of it is to discourage an entire quadrant of Riverside from just simply using this as the beginning of an off-ramp to the 15 freeway. I know this is not fun for you, huh?
I enjoy it, actually.
I wanted to ask back on, and I've brought this up before, was that street in Ontario that was under the premise of innovative traffic calming. I know Cheryl's looked at it, but has anyone else looked at that street? And has Dominic researched that? I mean, where it had... Yeah, you've been out there.
Yeah, we've looked at it.
So
and
it
we've
had a
gone
lot
up and
of
down that
innovative aspects to it.
Right. But again, those measures are in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, so keep that in mind. Those measures that were observed actually put the medians right here in the middle, so either folks have to go in front of the median or they go around it and go in the streets. That's what they primarily, you'll see always those medians in that design you're talking about in Ontario. They put the medians right at the entrance or right before the entrance of a street, so you either have to go around it or you're going before it. So you're literally slowing down, and the median's in front of you with a tree and a light, which does block your view, but the idea is you're slowing down because you can't see, and then making your turn. So again, we're not precluded from doing any types of changes. My goal, and I'm happy to do whatever the council decides, is that it's significant effort and money has been spent already to reduce this way. It was purposely done to narrow people down, to slow them down. And we've spent that money and done that. Now the last part of it was to do the vertical side to see if we can, that last piece, to slow them down. My contention is that we've slowed people down. We've done what we initially attempted to do, whether it's meet a certain threshold that the council would be satisfied with. Again, it is for you to decide. And going back to the monument, again, I would point out, as far as the concerns on Wyatt, this median area is wide enough where folks can literally drive out here, stage, and then go when it's safe if they're concerned. There's a dedicated left turn here where people stop here to turn, but if you had to come out, it's basically acts as a median island where you can sit and wait to go. So in the effort of trying to maximize the benefit and the impact of your monument sign, I just wanted to point that out, in trying to keep it here where it is your entrance to your city. I do believe folks from this street can safely exit, despite if this was any type of impediment, because again, they'll see the lights. They'll see if they're green or not, or red, and know whether any traffic's coming. But they can also creep out into this area, completely be safe, unless you're in a trailer and have towing something. Obviously, it's not that way, but for a single vehicle, you could creep into here. You're not impeding this person if they happen to be coming in here into this area, and if they go by, you can go in. So like I said, my goal is just trying to, what I think it was your intent was the monument sign is to be at the entry, if we could salvage that. But if not, like I said, we can put it anywhere you want. We can certainly scrape out the median and make it wider, but then you have basically done the opposite of what the original intent was. And again, those things can be done, but I just want to make sure, in full disclosure, as we go through this, it's more money. And again, the council has that prerogative to add more money to this project or put money back to where it should be, to the mayor's concern. But I just want, again, my goal is to be cost effective in trying to get what you want. We could do the street lights. We can, in this area, as far as the signals, it's just dollars. And certainly it would control people. Keep in mind, it also will be green, so people will be flowing through that corner when it's green. They'll be going at 40, turning onto the street to go 40, versus right now, they at least have to stop and then they accelerate. So again, that is concerned with going to a traffic light. We would do it in rest in red motion if we put one in, so at least those initial people when first come up, they have to slow down. But everybody behind them keeps their speed going and will go through it until there's no one in the area. Then they will, it'll go back into rest in red again and slow the next people down. So there's certainly all kinds of things we can do in here. My goal as the public works director is really just try to get to your goal as fast as we can with the fiscally responsible as we can. And so I'm not trying to dissuade you from something, but I'm just trying to give you all the options and the information as you move forward.
Jen,
I'm happy to do anything you
I
like.
had a question for you. With the monument sign where you proposed, my concern was people turning left off of Viceroy onto North. Do you see the sign being an impediment for that?
No, because they're looking this direction. If they're looking this way, they clearly can see the traffic coming through here. That's not an impediment.
And the speed right there is 40?
40.
And then that curve, so there's no impediment even with a little bit of bend in the road? Only because I made that turn when it was raining and checking out the area over there, and even without the monument sign, I was still kind of...
But it's dark. I mean, this whole
Yeah.
street is dark. I mean, that's your impediment, is there's no street light. So it's dark at night for anybody. And the only thing that gives you that light is anything that's over here or the street light itself. And again, depending on what you want to do with this monument, again, if you could add solar to it, put lights on it, whatnot. But there is certainly, from this point, looking this way, you can see the vehicles in this lane. And anybody obviously going this direction, they can see the light has changed and they're coming across going this way.
Well, right there on Crestview, you have the benefit of the light.
Right.
So
if you're coming this way and the folks on Viceroy, they can see the light change and whether or not they can come across.
Chad, I think Kevin got the right idea, and I think so did Mayor Newton. And trying to get it off of the people get them away from the curb. And I know it would take a little more, but I'm looking, when I was doing my research on the water things, lo and behold, I find October 5th, 2009, we awarded the bid for that mess we have there. And again, I don't know what the council was thinking. I don't know what the engineer was thinking when he designed this. But certainly they didn't finish the job. And now we're stuck. We're doing this, I guess we got to finish it because we're the city of unfinished projects. Kevin talked about strangulation. There are chokers that we can put as a traffic calming measure in there. If we choked off away from the north side of North and the south side, so that they choke, that they have to make that curve, and you can do it with visual impairments up along there, so that they have to come through. Even if it takes some of that big island off there, to narrow that road down so it appears that they have to do an S to go through there, even though I know engineeringly you can go through straight, but it's the appearance of that S curve and that choking them down to make them slow down so that they are no longer, if they hit that curb, let them bounce in the middle, in the island. Don't let them hit the back into the wall there again. That's what we're trying to do, is prevent that.
Right.
And I would think if you talk to Dominic and probably come up with some choker ideas through there, even if it meant taking some of that island out of there, that might help it. That's what I'm just thinking about, just to get it away from that.
No, I understand. Like I said, and I actually asked the Eric to pull the SWITR information regarding accidents. And again, the accidents in that area, specifically around that intersection, the last accident, well, I know there was one accident last year that's not currently in SWITR, so I know there's one there in 2016, but the one before that was April 2012. And then we had 2009, 2008, and 2006. So it's certainly not creating, the existing condition is not indicative that there's a large number of accidents. All I can tell you is in regards to the speed, we've appeared, based off the data, we've reduced the speed. And I'm only saying that again, and I keep repeating that, is only because my emphasis, as recommendation is, to try not to throw more money at it when you're really probably not going to get any more impact than what you've already received with the measures you've already put in. So, and again, because you've already invested a lot of money into that median island, whether, again, I agree, it's an ugly eyesore, but the intent was, and why they did it before, is just to narrow people down. They just didn't really design it to have an overall look. It's just, they want to narrow, and hopefully that would do that. But the other elements weren't there. Like I said, we threw a lot of other ideas at you. We said, add the vertical, add the lights, do the rest of red, and thinking it would all work. But my perspective was, instead of me throwing it all in there, maybe the first two do the trick, and we don't have to spend the money on the rest. I'm happy to throw all these things in, and whatever you're happy to do. I'm just advocating, I don't know if the data supports the need to do it. And that's my only concern, is I'm just trying to maximize every dollar that you give me and putting it, because I know I've got a gazillion other areas that need assistance too.
You made there is no power or any utilities. No, I know there's no water on any of that area. Right. So if we put a monument sign, the only effective way to do it, because I talked to Larry, who has the appliance thing all the time, and he probably attest to the number of graffiti calls you get at that wall that sits at Crestview and North. And it's just, there's a lot. Yeah. They're there. So without a light being there, our wall's it's going to get tagged.
Yeah, we would have to put solar lights on.
And so solar lights,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Because we'd still want people to see it at night.
Yeah, well, you do.
For the record, this was approved before I got on council and built, just so we know that. I didn't get on until late 2009, 2010. Just want to make that clear.
Well, given it's October 2009. November.
But I like Ted's idea to try to give you some direction, to go back and look at choking that down, okay?
When you, just so I can clear, when you say choking down, you're talking about in this area specifically? Like do an S through here?
Well, you're gonna rehab that existing, what we see today, that island.
This one here. So because again, obviously if you rehab this, your monument sign wouldn't go there.
Well, let's go back to what I said earlier, that we don't want vehicles to be forced towards the horse trail. We want you to naturally go inward.
No, and I understand. I'm just saying, if we do the modification that Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman's talking about, it would limit the space in here to put a monument sign in there, because we're going to shift this area over significantly, and it would narrow out the existing median.
What's your section through there?
I don't know if we listed that on.
I don't know if you.
Not, Greg.
You've shown.
If you take 3 feet, if you took 3 feet there off on that north side of North, and 3 feet off that south side of North, and you took that in there, just to get that choker look, I think you'd be surprised. You still got a pretty wide thing, and that monument sign can be reduced in the width as it is. That's.
I think you're calling like 38 feet.
Yeah,
if I'm looking at like a AA section, so if you pulled 6 feet out of it, you still got.
Again, my concern is that traditionally those types of measures are done on a road that's 25 or less. These are speeds of 40 miles an hour, and if
then
folks
maybe we have to reduce the speed.
And again, that is determined, again, as you know, by the warrants determined whether or not, because of the traffic and the flow, whether or not that speed should be lower.
When does our next speed, when do we do the next speed evaluation there? It was just done.
I think it was done in.
Did they do that when
I think it was
Grover did that thing?
Well, they did a speed survey in that area as far as to verify counts and speed and determine whether or not there was justification in changing the speed, and at the time, there was no justification in modifying the speed at that time.
But
that was part of the study.
They didn't do the certification speed thing that we do every 3 or 5 years?
Well, I think they did a specific certification on this by verifying whether or not it warranted any change in the speed. Again, that's my other concern regarding any. Normally, these other measures that we've seen and the mayor talked about are on lower speed streets, so they get people that are on more of a residential street where there's more people and kids around. That these measures, if people they're trying to keep people even below 25. These are people that are coming in at 40, as on the average. And if you have this quick S-turn and it's not properly lit, and that's our other issue is lighting in this area right now, sending them straight and narrowing them, they're at least going on that path, and they were just slowed down by the Western Red, potentially. They were slowed down by the speedback sign, and they're narrowing them now, going from a wide open street to the narrowing is, again, I'm just trying to make sure we're not getting ourselves in a pickle and creating more accidents than we intended. So if we go these types of routes, we certainly want to be cognizant of the fact that you're asking people to swerve doing 40 miles an hour, which again, our drivers make mistakes, and is that going to cause more accidents? But we can look at that. I just want to make sure before we move forward any type of permit that we...
And I understand the speed limit and how the thing works. And the only problem we have, if we were to reduce it, is that Eric's guys can't enforce it because it doesn't meet the state code of the vehicle code that said it was a speed survey, and we went way below the recommended survey. So we're taking half a mile of roadway that we can't enforce. I know there's probably some illegal mumbo jumbo that's going to come involved with it too by arbitrarily putting a 25 mile an hour speed zone in there. But if that's what it takes to slow them down, there's just some things that we just have to accept sometime, because personally I don't like California being at 35. I think that heavy residential street's a mess, and then you come from 40, and you got Arlington over there is at 45 or 40.
I think they reduced theirs to 40.
I'm not sure.
I mean, we should be, that should be it should be a progressive slowdown in there. And if we can sneak 35 in there, at least that's better than the 40.
Ted, the other is you got a lot of pedestrian and equestrian traffic on that.
Absolutely.
On that trail. So, yeah. Well, let me ask, you want to hear any cards? Cheryl, do we have any cards?
Yes, Mayor.
Item?
I have 2 cards here. First one is from Elodie Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening. I haven't spoken here before. I don't know how to do it, but I'm in that area a lot. And most of what he said, I don't agree with at all. I don't think the traffic is slowed down a whole lot. And I think the only solution is a stoplight at the corner to keep people from running into the neighbor's house, number 1, and to make it safer for horses to cross there, number 2, which we like to do sometimes. So to slow it down sounds wonderful. I hope you can do it. I would love to see a lower speed limit on there if you can arrange that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Hammondtree.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I'm a resident on California, and I'm really glad that you're addressing these issues on California that we've been struggling with for so many years. And I'm glad you're going to slow things down on North Street, but what about the rest of California? It's like a speedway through there. Once it gets to California, you have these long stretches, and they build up speed, and they're doing almost freeway speeds going through there. And we have kids on California, just like in other residents. We have a horse trail, which is in badly need of repair. We're missing a lot of the trail fencing, and I don't know how many times I've seen near misses. We're just lucky that nobody's been killed there yet, because the horse will spook and it'll start backing up into the street. There's no fencing to keep them from going in there. Plus, the new fencing, I think, would help to slow the traffic down, so if you put reflectors or something on it. But we really need gaps in traffic so we can safely get out of our driveways, as well as get across the street to access the horse trail. And we need the speed reduction, and that would help us out a lot. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. Do we want to give a final direction to staff? I mean, that's what you're asking for.
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see, maybe Dominic comes up with something that can we actually reduce the speed limit? And again, just the idea that to discourage people from using that route, everything we can. I understand what you're saying. But I'd like to know, can we reduce the speed? Is there a way to do it? Because, we did reduce speed on other streets. We got a special dispensation to do that. Berwin was on the council then. I believe he was. I'd like to see Dominic come up with something else.
John was on the council at that time, at least.
John was on the council like back in the Yabba Dabba Doo days,
Neanderthal?
Yeah.
Now, that speed deal's been out for a long time before I ever got on council. John graduated from high school.
Ted?
I think you're going in the right direction, but I think we need some more. I recall Brian did some playing with his little laptop there, some ideas on that medium, and it was pretty interesting. I like the idea of doing the sign, the monument sign, but I just got a feeling in there that it probably could work if it was smaller. But I'm going to go back with the mayor's suggestion is that the residents that live there, like Mr. Hammondtree, and the other people that live right off of North, we need to have a meeting with them because they're the ones that are impacted totally by this. Mm-hmm. They have to live with it every day. We hear about it, but they live with it every day. And I think you need some input from them. They may come up with something, and you're going to come up with the wazoo thing that says put a crossing gate there and don't let anybody in, and you're going to get the other people that don't care.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, but I think we need. I would like to see their input into it. Like I said, this thing in 2009 when it first got started, I don't want to beat it up anymore, but I don't want to see it in 2019 anymore either. I think we need to work on it in the next 12 months and get this thing resolved and get it fixed. So I would suggest that we have a meeting with the residents that live up there and also start looking at the other traffic calming measures with that. I agree with Kevin, is that look at slowing that speed down to at least 35 or 30 on that. Just, hey, I don't care if Riversiders don't like to drive through our city. Find another way to go through. Mm-hmm. All right? Thanks, Chad.
Robin?
I will concur with Ted and Kevin. Thank you, Chad, though, for the work that has been done to date.
You're welcome.
Berwin?
Yeah, I'll agree with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem about meeting with the residents over there and trying to find out. But one question, what did you, on this one picture drawing where you have that roundabout down there at the end, what did you say the cost of that would be?
That was estimated to be about $500,000 to do all the work, because there's utilities that have to be moved, some brought in, et cetera. So there's a lot of extra work there that's undesirable, but we have to do.
That might be well worth it, because I've been to several cities that have those things, and you certainly have to slow down to get around them. So
yeah, the only problem with that is you basically you'd have to take part of that person's property, and again, it basically cuts right into his property. So you basically need this whole area here. We'd have to get dedicated from him, and it would affect any potential use of a trail on this side. So that's the problem, and it extends obviously into the existing. This is our parkway area, but it extends into there too. We would chop this out as far as the turning radius, and which again it narrows down the trail that's in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a sense of direction? I mean, you're going somewhat in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah.
And cheaper, more and less. Okay.
Well, I'm good with less. I'm trying with less, but
I know. But
we'll see what we come up with. It's different. Like I said, we've been waiting long enough for just at least something to come back to you. We brought that back. We've got some direction, and we'll move forward and try to come back with something quicker time frame.
And the other thing, not to jam you up too bad, is this has been sitting for quite a while. And so I'd like you to take this direction, but time is of the essence also. Okay?
Right. And again, it's up to council. If there's a desire, if you guys have a consensus that you want the improvements, let's say, to the trail fencing, we can move forward on that. That at least provides partial visual element that hopefully pushes people away from the trails. We can move forward on that, at least get some part of that done if that's going to be something we do anyway. So at least we're moving on getting things implemented. The other parts we'll wait on because it obviously involves the median and what potential changes or we may not do. So if the council is okay with that, I can move forward with that element, at least get some more improvements done on that area.
Personally, I'd rather see a total plan before we piecemeal certain actions on that.
Yep, not a problem.
And to go along with Kevin, I always remember that, I mean, where you're talking about backing that traffic up. I remember years ago, Hal Clark said he didn't care if it backed that traffic up to Riverside for 12 miles. So use that as your goal, and maybe they'll find another way.
Okay. 12 miles, I'll remember that.
12 miles.
Okay.
Good job, Chad.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? That's all we have to do for our action is give you some direction. Great. So we'll move to last item, item 6B, verbal update on 6th Street Trail Fence Replacement Project. Chad.
Okay, so I'm ready to get beat up again. As you may have already heard at previous community meetings and whatnot, one of our remaining projects is, let's see if this is working here, nope, not working. No, it's fine. So we have 5 projects that have been listed for trail improvements, and to date we've completed Valley View, which is from 1st to 2nd. Go ahead, Brian. 3rd Street, Corona to Temescal, Corridon, River Road to San Anita, that actually was done. Thank you to NHA. They did that work for us. That actually was a wood fence, so they were just fixing, we removed a lot of palm trees there in that area, and because that whole area in that community is still wood fence, it was just a small segment, we went back and put wood fence in that area so at least it was consistent until such time we may go through and actually change the entire area and to the vinyl. And then obviously we did the bigger project, was the Peninsula project, which was Bluff and Stagecoach, which completed that entire community. So the 6th Street fence project was originally designed to be done over 5 years because of the cost associated with it and limited funding. This 1 year, we got additional funding that the mayor talked about to do the Peninsula project that was a boost to it, but we normally do about $50,000 to $70,000 a year in trail fence replacement. So it was thought we'd do 6th Street over a 5-year period. The current first segment was intended to be Sierra to Valley View, which is estimated about $50,000 for that time period. Currently, we actually have $135,000 available because, and unfortunately, unfortunately to an error, when we actually bid out the Peninsula project, we had almost double the actual length that was required. I don't know how that happened, but it occurred. So in the end, we still got a great price from the bidder, and we actually just ended up doing the other 3 projects and got them done. So at that price. So basically, that left excess money in it that we thought we were going to spend. It's available now. So looking at knowing I had $135,000 available, I decided, okay, well, what if we actually did all of 6th Street right now since the money is available? And could it be done? Go ahead, Brian. So we evaluated that to see what could be done. Go ahead, Brian. But our project concerns were replacing all of 6th Street, and 6th Street is the only location where there's double rail fencing up both sides of 6th Street. And our goal was to go from Sierra all the way up to Crestview. in replacing the fence. So there's only enough fencing at this point to replace the outer trail and not the inner trail. The inner trail fence is also not required in our standards. So it's a unique area that we currently have that double trail, but it's not required. Keeping the inner wood trail and fence has some issues. Go ahead, Brian. Yep. It would visually clash. Obviously, you'd have a nice white vinyl fence on the outer. You'd have the wood internally. It would clash. It would look a little strange. There'd be the continuing ongoing maintenance for the city because both those fences are within the trail. So we maintain all of them. None of the inner trail is on private property. It's all in the trail. So we maintain that and we continue to maintain that. And then the other issue is many of those inner trail fences are really unnecessary because there's already a private wall or a fence or there's a large bush or hedges. So it's really not even necessary as far as maintaining in some of those areas. I wanted to give you some examples of what we're referring to, why they say they're unnecessary. Here's one property where, again, you have the trail fence, but they've got certainly a wrought iron gate. Here's another one where it has a chain link fence. Again, another area that says chain link fence. It's a long segment. Chain link fence, again, but the fence, the wooden trail fence is there. Same situation here, a very long section where there's, again, the resident already has that border or whatnot that kind of, if there's a desire to kind of tunnel riders into a specific area. So staff's recommendation at this time, in order to complete the complete trail fence replacement, is to replace all the outer fencing from 6th Street, approximately 900 linear feet, remove all the inner trail fencing on 6th Street. Staff would use court crews to remove the wood trail fencing. That saves us money, and we will salvage any wood we can possible, again, to use as infill for other existing wood fence areas. And we did review this item in discussion with the STUC committee, and they did approve our recommendation to move forward on the project to replace all of 6th Street, which includes what we recommend up here, and not replace the inner, but remove it. So I'm looking for, at this point, before going forward, is get council's feedback on this project, because obviously we're modifying the original intent, and just want to get direction because we're ready to move forward and want to get your buy-off on what you think we can or shouldn't do on this project.
Yeah, this 9,500 linear feet, is that on both sides?
Yes, the outer trail fence on both sides would be replaced.
That's all the distance that is from Sierra to Crestview then?
Yes. We wheeled that off.
Thank you.
Chad, the Streets and Trails Committee members didn't have any issues with the interior fence being removed and not replaced?
No, they discussed it and talked about different issues, whatnot, but from what I recall from the meeting, again, there wasn't anything specific that was a concern in removing it. I think after the fact, Commissioner Naylor came up to me and they got more information about past practices in that area and mentioned that the fencing was used or intended to kind of create a border so that property owners don't encroach into the trail. But I think pretty much this trail was put in a while ago and the fencing was there. Pretty much most of the property lines are established and there's not going to be any encroachment. And if there was, again, we do have code enforcement to go out and get people to move their properties back if they did that.
Right.
But it doesn't preclude any property owner from putting their own fence in there, but on their property, which they would maintain. So, I mean, that's the thing for me is a lot of properties already have put their fencing in for their own purposes, so it's there. We'd be putting it back in really areas where someone has elected not put a fence in at this time.
Right. Well, the pictures that you have, if I'm not mistaken, all of them are on the north?
Both sides.
Well, no, the example pictures that you have are from the north?
No, some of them are on the south.
The last one. Oh, the community church.
So that's north, that's south, that's south.
South.
Yeah. So I did half and half.
Okay. I guess my question would be, a little bit further down going towards Crestview where there's primarily there's a little block of residences. Do they have trail fencing in front of their house right now?
Some of them do, or some
is it
don't.
kind of
Some of
mixed
it's fallen
match?
down, but yeah, it's in those segments, there is some trail fencing in front of those homes in the trail.
Okay. So it's inconsistent. Would you say the inner fence is inconsistent or primarily consistent going down 6th Street?
It's consistent in most cases. Like I said, there's some areas that have fallen down in certain areas for wear and tear, or just and they were knocked down. But again, the intent was consistent. There was an inner trail, inner fence wherever possible.
Okay. Thank you.
$9,500 linear feet, correct? Is that what you got?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many linear feet it would take to do California on both sides?
I don't. I have not looked at that.
Okay. Most of the fence on 6th Street is pretty decent shape.
I would say maybe a good percentage of it's probably in decent shape. Again, we can salvage it.
Decent shape.
Yeah.
So 3 or 5 years worth of life on it?
I'm not sure as far as that goes.
I'm not trying to be hard on you on this. You and I have talked about this. We have 3 parades in town every year. And yes, people sit on that wooden fence.
Right.
Are they going to be able to sit on that vinyl fence and withstand the weight?
My default answer would be the fence is not intended to be sat on, either the wood or the vinyl. So any person who is choosing to sit on the fence or mount their horse using the fence or whatnot, that fence is not there for that purpose. That's my default. I wouldn't want to say it could support them because that's not what it's intended to be for.
Those poles are set 8 foot apart. Those planks are 16 feet long, and they're hollow, right? They're honeycombs inside, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I was to check and look for an engineer's report or a weight support on that thing, it would tell you those things are essentially aesthetic looking fence. They're not designed or engineered to hold any or suspend any weight.
Right.
And you wouldn't be surprised if I told you that. Part of the reason there's 2 fences in there, and I'll go back, I had to dig back through my memory, it was because 6th Street was our major street for a long time, and there were a lot of homes that used to be along 6th Street. There are still some remnants of it. And at that time, the residents, when they did it, there was an idea of keeping that aesthetic look, of keeping that trail that way along the 6th Street. That's why it's on both sides, so they wouldn't have to cross. So that is why, because there was houses there. And as the houses slowly became businesses or businesses slowly changed, they didn't want them. But essentially that's what it was. And you look at your pictures, and it's a very aesthetic looking, very inviting thing to look down and see the trail on both sides because it's defined. That's where people were supposed to ride their horses, up and down 6th Street. I'm not a big fan of taking out both fences and replacing only one side. I think it takes away from the aesthetic value of it. I understand that, some of it has been destroyed. But I'm trying to figure out and wrap my head around, we have this money that is there, and we're taking 9,500 linear feet of fence that is actually salvageable and serviceable right now, where we have a real need. And if we're trying to make this, because it's our major thoroughfare, and I understand what you're doing here, we want to make 6th Street look good, and so do I. But California is also a big thoroughfare for people. And to me, that's where that fence needs to be, that money needs to be spent to fix that before I'm a real big fan of fixing something on 6th Street where we're losing half of our fence and we're not replacing it. Because once we take it out, it ain't going to come back. That's all I said.
bad we're beating you up tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of pulling out the fence on both sides, and the fencing on, I was thinking the same thing about 6th Street. It's particularly when the Boot Barn Center came in, that whole street really looks nice, and going all the way down toward Sierra, really. And you have fencing on one side. I think it just, the wood fence looks fine. I think get it repaired. There's another area that we need to repair, which is 7th and 8th on Pedley Avenue. I mean, it's like there's no fencing there. It's all akimbo. And maybe he's onto something. Maybe one of the things we need to think about is if we doll up California, and maybe I'm probably wrong, but if we make California look more beautiful, maybe people will respect it more in terms of driving through it. Maybe, I don't know. But I kind of like that idea. I kind of like, we got tons of that fencing over there at the park. I mean, we could easily fix that stuff, keep the 2, and do California. I mean, that is a major entrance into our city, and if we can find a way to slow people down and maybe have some pride in that as people come into it. I know that the way they drive is crazy, but I kind of like that idea. That's all.
I'm a little mixed on this, that, I look at what Valley City Fence did with the white vinyl on inside, outside. It looks clean. It looks really, really good. Some of the conditions replacing the outer fence, okay? I'm just curious what the lineal footage would be. Let's see how to put this. Let's say like using this one photo of like the church, that we got a chain link fence. So yeah, there's no need to have an interior fence in that condition, but it would look nice. When you get down towards Boot Barn, and I was trying to remember with that development, I think there is more of a need for an inner fence on that. So it's kind of piecemeal. And then we're going to end up with a piecemeal or an unfinished project in a sense, which that troubles me. So I can see some conditions that it should be the interior fence, you could exclude it. Other conditions, it should be included. I kind of like the California idea also, but just to give you the finishing touch, because you've already been beat up, that so this extra money came out of the fencing for the peninsula area, which came out of, would you like to answer that? The unspecified funds that I talked about on the other agenda item. So I could kind of lean towards maybe going back to Streets and Trails Commission on this and try to get their opinion on and their recommendations on maybe looking on California Avenue from North to 6th and see what that would take also.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I mean, like I said, none of our projects are set in stone, and we initially did put a part of the CIP to change it over 5 years, but if there's a preference to go to those areas that really don't have any fencing or little of, we can go that direction. We focused on California mainly because it's our major thoroughfare, and we wanted to improve that over time. It's just we had the opportunity now to do it at one fell swoop, and that was our motivation, but we can simply use that money for other trail areas, and that'd be fine.
And it's also part of the bigger picture that we face in the next year or 2 years, or what we face today is bringing all our trails up to a standard and being able to maintain them. So, I mean, I kind of get the big picture too, but what do the rest of you think?
That said, the one thing I don't want to lose sight of is we make money on 2 streets, 3 if you count River. It is vital vital, because, I mean, man, when I got on council in 2009, the trees were dying, things didn't look real good. You guys have done a great job of making 6th Street look beautiful. I mean, that whole barn, Jennifer Wells Place, the new veterinarian clinic, I mean, that corner is what I would love all of 6th Street to look like. So it's important that we don't if we're going to stay with the wood, that we keep it nice. But I mean, that trail right now is beautiful. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a city that generates $1.4 to $1.7 million a year in property tax. We live and die on sales tax, and that's one of the important streets. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we always have to make sure that street looks nice. I like the wood. I think it'll last. I think it'll last for a while. That said, the entrance into our city is California Avenue. And so I kind of like that idea. I like the idea of sending it back to Streets and Trails and having them discuss that.
To your point about 6th Street, keep in mind that as any new development comes in or change of property ownership, whatnot, improvements are done on the property, part of those conditions is for them to change out the wood fencing to vinyl. So over time, there will start being the patchwork of vinyl replacing the wood. So we would maintain what's existing as it breaks with the materials we have, but the goal is just do what Valley Fence did over time is, again, replace that. Again, the difference with Valley Fence is they put the inner fence on their property. It's not in the trail.
Well, maybe the way we do it is there's still a lot of residential areas on 6th Street. Maybe you go from Kmart up to Sierra, or you do two. We've done that before, where we do 2 or 3 blocks.
Kmart?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, not Kmart. I meant Circle K. Sorry, Circle K. But I mean, we could find stretches that are completely business. You know, they're retail, and maybe do it that way. But you know, the thing about Bluff is when we did Bluff, those folks were one of the first to get the fencing in, and we promised them and promised them and promised them, and I think Ted's the one that said we really haven't done anything for California Avenue except take all their land, and then we gave it back and then didn't do any of the improvements. I mean, that's before all of us, but we'll forget that story. But I kind of like the idea, and I wonder would maybe Dominic weigh in on this, and would that slow people down that way? I don't know if it would or not. One of the things, by the way, just so we're all clear, that fencing does not protect you on the back of a horse from a car at all. Never. It is not protection. In fact, if you think it's a protection, you're going to get killed. Of course, we'll go through that in a minute, and what it's done is it has trained drivers not to learn how to drive around horses. When I was a kid, my dad used to teach us to drive way out and slow down. People think that fence is a barrier. It is not a barrier at all. In fact, I believe in many ways fencing is dangerous. So I just want to put my 2 cents in there. But that said, maybe the glare or something. By the way, you know what the best stop sign, the best deterrent is? There are 2 traffic cops that sit in Riverside, and when you come up over the hill, if you don't hit 40, you never know when they're going to be there. So you hit 40 whether they're there or not. If we could get a couple of traffic cops, that might solve the whole problem. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I'm going to reiterate, I just think if this goes back to Streets and Trails, ask them about the California option. Get your linear footage that you need for that, and then determine if it's the same. And it's probably going to be pretty close. And I really would do California on both sides. And the reason I say that, not only the trail side, but the other side. And again, this has to be back to the residents, because again, you create that visibility, that tunnel visibility. I've always think about it when you're driving down the roadway and you come to the road and there's a tunnel there. First thing you do is slow down. I mean, that's human nature. You've got to do it, because that's just how our mind thinks. Unless it's a really wide tunnel like they have in Phoenix or some of the big ones. But you do slow down, because that's just our human nature to do that. Right. So if we think about putting that white vinyl fence on both sides so we can create that corridor look, I think you're going to, and send us back, let Streets and Trails look at it and see what you're going to go, just to see if that'll work. Because, and don't get me wrong, I'm like with Kevin, 6th Street is very important to keep its appearance up. And I would hopefully see this in a couple of years on our CIP to replace, but all the vinyl fence on 6th Street to include the inner and outer fence. And hopefully if we get revenues coming in, that'll happen. Because he's right, unless we keep our appearance up, we won't attract the larger and nicer businesses that we want to. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that we do have the residents that live here and every day, and we can't just gamble on what we could or couldn't do. But the fact that as residents we live here and what's good for them too. All right, thank you.
Robin?
Back to streets and trails it is. I agree with the idea on California, that California is in pretty poor shape, and a lot of the trail fence is missing. So I definitely think that putting fencing in where there is none would be the best idea at this time.
Erwin?
I think we ought to look at putting it on California because that's probably the most dangerous street to ride a horse along, especially since there's no trail fence there on most of it and everything. So I think they ought to look at putting it over there on the horse trail.
Okay, we can do that.
Cheryl, any cards?
Yes, Mayor. The first speaker is Elodie Moore.
Hello again.
Wow, I get to do it again. Okay.
Yeah.
I love the trails on 6th Street. I think they're so gorgeous. You stop at the stoplight at Sierra coming into 6th Street, and those two fences, both sides, with rails both sides, straight as an arrow. It's gorgeous. But I don't really like the white ones. The white ones are not helpful to horses. But what bothers me most, all the businesses are supposed to have a somewhat Western look to them. We're going to take out the wood fences that are a Western look, and we're going to put in something that comes from Palos Verdes.
Thank you.
Bonnie Slager.
I don't think I can top that at all.
Hey.
I'm not going to try. You know, as residents, we want our money spent wisely, and I question if putting money into the white fencing on 6th Street is a reasonable use of our money at this point. And I say our money because you are 5 residents, just like I'm a resident, and you're our stewards of our money. However, it's our money, I believe. Having the fencing on both sides, to me, looks like a commercial fencing thing. Right out here on 4th Street, you put double fencing in the white fencing. So it isn't just on 6th Street where there's double fencing. I think it's where there's commercial property. Whether it is a commercial use of the property or not, the zoning of commercial. NHA has been trying to keep the fencing up on 6th Street. I think it's in pretty decent shape. At least if you're driving 40 miles an hour and look real quick, it looks pretty good. I hope you will consider California. I think that would be a good idea with the money. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Pat Overstreet.
Hello again, Mr. Mayor, Council. I think all of the vinyl fencing we've put in all over town is absolutely gorgeous. It's actually upscaled so many of the neighborhoods that looked a little run down. I've noticed the residents in those areas look like they've spiffed up their yards, and they appreciate that it's looking better. But I have a different attitude about 6th Street, and I'm so glad the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned the parades. I'm chair of the parade committee. We have 3 very important parades 3 times a year. Everybody sits on the fencing, and I've got vinyl in front of my house that we put up. I wouldn't dare sit on it. I know it wouldn't hold me. Also, there's the historic look to 6th Street. I actually prefer to keeping the wooden, the cedar posts on 6th Street. I see where Valley's City's fence put up the white. I think it looks terrible. I think it's out of place, especially as you drive down to the Boot Barn complex. That's all very Western looking. I think we should keep the Western look on 6th. The rest of the town with the white vinyl, I think looks upgraded, and I like it. I just think we're doing a disservice to our history if we change what 6th Street looks like. We just have to have that wooden look. I like the fact that all of our residents can sit on the fence during the parade. When they find out we're not going to throw candy at the parades anymore, they're going to be upset enough. But if we had a parade and they couldn't sit on the fences, or they sat on them and broke them, that would not be nice either. So I'm for keeping all wooden fencing on 6th Street. That's our history, that's our heritage. Put all the white fencing up out in the neighborhoods, that looks wonderful. And give us a spot to sit on the parades and keep that historic factor to 6th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Bill Naylor.
Hi, Bill.
Council and Mayor. Since the Streets, Trails, and Utilities Commission looked at the 6th Street fencing, I have been approached by numerous businesses, residents, and trail users wanting to try to express their concerns about what they might be seeing on 6th Street. You've heard some of them tonight. I really appreciate you sending this back to Streets, Trails, and Utilities. I think we would have a good chance to take a look at this a little more in depth. When it was presented to us originally, it was really, do you want one side or two sides on the fence trail? There's a lot of discussion and pro and con on both sides, so I think that would be an excellent thing to send back. You have also made a couple of very good points about sales tax revenue and businesses along the street. One thing I think that we need to make it look nice, and the trail fencing, I know NHA and other city volunteers do try to keep the trail in decent shape as far as the fencing it goes and making repairs. But you'll notice, especially right now with all the rain, weeds are getting up that high. You can hardly see the fence in some places, and I think code enforcement or somebody really needs to go and talk to some of these businesses to get out and clean that trail. It's really not necessarily the city's responsibility to clean that section, according to my understanding of the code. It's really the property owner all the way out to the curb. So somebody just needs to say, hey, let's help keep things going and making people want to come to this area. The alternative of not doing 6th Street at this time, since the fence is in reasonably good shape. There are a few spots that are not too good, but we can deal with those. But maybe addressing or moving that funds to California, I think it's a good possible alternative. And again, I think the Streets, Trails, and Utilities Commission can sure look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Nancy Ketchum.
Good evening.
My husband and I moved to Norco about 5 years ago, and when we first came here, we never even knew about Norco. We grew up in Orange County, and I just fell in love with the look of it. The fencing was the first thing that drew my eye, in the Western look, and I really would hate to see that change. I hate the white fencing. To me, it looks cheap and plastic. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but especially 6th Street, I agree. To me, that's what really separates our town and makes it so different, unique, and special, is that non-suburban look. And I would really hate to see things slowly start to change and not maintain that special uniqueness about this town. And I wouldn't want to live in it if it was different. And I want to feel safe on our trails. In California Street, I don't feel safe. And I've been riding on streets my entire life in Orange County. And even there, I felt safer than in California, because they speed so badly there. So one horse on the back of on that street backing up with no fence, you're in big trouble. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. So, once again, let's provide some direction.
Mr. Mayor, one thing, if you're going to think about California, you need to think about, and I think one of the gentlemen noted it, the trail itself is in horrible shape. It needs to be reconstructed. So it's not just the trail fencing. I think you're putting trail fencing up, you're putting lipstick on a pig, basically, because that trail needs to be reconstructed. We've been out there a number of times, and you have so many low spots and everything. Unless you're going to fix the trail, I think you're just putting lipstick on a pig. You need to do the whole thing, and that's what you really need to consider, because that trail is in very bad shape, and I think the gentleman would agree with me. You have a lot of dips and low spots that not only affect the trail, but it also affects the way water comes down that trail and affects the property. So if we're going to look at it, I think we need to also look at the trail and reconstruction of that trail as well.
And I think that's what I was trying to say, is we have to look at that standard. That's one of the worst ones, but
the trail itself has a lot of uneven spots to where it's just worn completely out, where you don't even have any DG material there. You're down to native. And the problem there is that some of those spots are worn so bad that when we catch water off a grade there, it just floods out some of those properties because the trail isn't graded properly. It doesn't have a 2% of slope away from the residents, and there's just work that needs to be done that I think if you're going to be doing that sort of a fence replacement there, if that's going to be considered, you need to look at the trail as well.
And I agree with you that, and I think that's the recommendation is going to be go back to streets and trails, rehab the trail portion, but the other challenge is, so you rehab it, and maybe that fits within this budget, okay? But how are you going to maintain it?
Same issue that comes up if you're going to do the same thing on 6th Street. How do you maintain it? Right now, Public Works cannot stay up with the trail system we have. And if we don't look at that as something going into the next budget cycle or whatever, we'll never stay up with the miles of trails you have here. It's just not going to happen. They're chasing themselves now and trying to stay up with the bridle trails. If we don't have another solution and we want to be Horsetown, USA, we need to do something about the trails here in the community. It needs to be a very important item that needs to be considered, because right now the amount of maintenance we do to the trails is very limited. And we really run to go put out fires. We don't do anything that's proactive related to trail maintenance.
Yeah,
and if NHA wasn't helping us, we'd be in a lot more trouble.
I would go to far as say, look, there is no maintenance program per se when you think of maintenance.
Oh, I think we're well aware of that.
We simply do patchwork as we can with the limited funds. Again, we only get $25,000 in the budget for just DG. And that goes like that, especially when it's rain season. So, we do what we can. Again, I know that's a long-term goal of actually having a maintenance program, but that goes into the bigger philosophical change of budgeting money, can we get additional revenues, et cetera, to do what the community wants, which is have good functional trails and actually maintain them. That's a much bigger discussion. Coming from this discussion, again, I understand the direction as far as go back to stuff to talk about what could be done in California and what would need to be done in order to do it the right way. And we can certainly look at all that. I would like to, since it's been brought up here as far as a potential issue presenting itself later on, is if there's going to be a philosophical change to white vinyl fencing, at least on 6th Street, we need to determine that now rather than later, because the fact someone's already done it, others are going to be conditioned to do it, and once that's done, you've basically taken that away. So if that's a specific area that the council agrees with the community, if that's their push to keep that in the western look as far as with wood, then we need to make that change now rather than later, because we're already moving that direction. And then just to go back to what comment was made earlier regarding 4th Street here, the only reason there's inner fencing is because of the slopes. It was to protect the riders who were on there. So because it's a complete drop down, we want to have that border to keep people away from the slopes. So you'll see it's not an inner fence all the way down. It's just where the slopes are. And that's the only reason it's there. And we would do that in any section of trail where there was a potential hazard of people going off the trail and falling down in that direction. So you will see that in certain areas, but only in those areas in residential communities.
You know, I think my last comment is going to be that on this trail right outside here, it's also that being on both sides, and I understand the slope, but it is the first impression for coming up into City Hall and coming into the Navy base. The same goes for 6th Street. You only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. So the debate can go back and forth between wood and vinyl, and I know that. And maybe another thing for streets and trails to consider is we should look at this situation on California. Maybe we do Arshel on 6th Street. You know, like from Sierra to Valley View.
I mean, the current CIP is from Sierra to Valley View, and it was intended originally to do both the inner and outer. That was the thought, but it was more my learning about the horse community and what they do. I asked the question is the inner even necessary? You know, because we don't have it anywhere else. So I was just asking that obvious question, why do we need it? And that's what we proposed to Stuck Committee, and that's what they talked about and going, well, it really doesn't have to be there. And it doesn't preclude a resident or business from putting it in themselves on their property. So that's how the discussion got. But originally, as we planned it in my first year, was the assumption I'd replace everything. So we can still move forward with that under this current CIP program if that's a desire. But again, my concern is I'd like to get an understanding is if we're committed to that and I do that change, all of 6th Street would change at some point, and that's the direction you want to go. So I'm happy to do that, but I'm a little concerned that maybe there might be a philosophical change to keeping that specific area of the city as wood. And I just want to make sure.
That discussion should be also with streets and trails first.
Okay.
Anybody else want to jump in?
When you go back to taking back the Streets and Trails Utility Commission, also, and Brian brought up a good point about the maintenance and the trail, we may want to look at the encroachments along 6th Street as far as that goes. When you start talking about how much, we talked about this, we should have, 60 feet worth of easement in there, of our right-of-way?
On 6th Street?
On 6th Street, California.
Oh, okay. You said California. I was looking.
No, I'm sorry, California.
California.
California's about 60 feet.
Should be at least 60 feet.
60 feet, and that's what we need to determine is how much has been encroached. And when you talk about trail fencing, how much do we have trees that are growing up in the middle of our trail, and do people built on our trail? I'm just trying to make it so that we can improve the appearance of that. It is a gateway area, and as far as the 6th Street vinyl fence, if I was making recommendations, I know it's expensive, and I would consider the vinyl clad wood along the outer rail in the future. It will hold up better than the hollow core vinyl. And as far as the western look, Berwin can probably back me up. He's been to Texas, I've been to Oklahoma, been to Nevada, I've been to all those places. There are so much white vinyl fences out in Texas and Oklahoma, it would surprise you. As that's what they use, because one, it'll last you 20 to 30 years versus this wooden fence will only last you 10. That's why they put it in. Barbed wire, right?
Barbed wire.
Yeah, I know.
Just for your clarification, because you brought up the synthetic wood, I did again talk with the Valley Fence about that and its benefits, whatnot. They were adamantly against the use of it for several reasons. Not only the cost is at least 100% more than your existing, but it actually has an issue where it gains a lot of moisture in there and the wood rots away internally.
He's not talking about the same thing. Brian, how long has the fence been up there at Ingalls Park? In front of Nellie Weaver?
Probably 15 years.
15 years. Is there any problem with it?
No.
Nope. Yeah, I know. No, he's talking a different product. Vinyl clad wood, you can only get it one vendor, correct? Back Midwest?
That's where we get came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's something worth looking at if the issue is people sitting on the fence, and then you may not be able to phase in as much as you want, but eventually I think it would hold up to it. So.
It's not what they brought out for Valleys was a pressed wood. This is actually a 2x6 that has the vinyl clad sealed around it.
No, that's exactly what he talked about.
And it doesn't,
Yeah.
I know because I've had it in my property up there, and the hills is full of it, and it's still looking the same way it was when they built it in 2004.
Anything else, Kevin? Good.
Thank you for the direction.
You have some direction?
I certainly do.
Okay. Thank you, Chad. Good work. Last item, City Council, City Manager, Staff Communications. Berwin, anything?
No.
Robin?
Nothing.
Ed?
Yeah, I do. We started our Youth Advisory Council, almost 9 months ago? 9 months ago, whatever, and voted on it. I was talking to Diane German, and if it fits in, Andy, with your schedule for our next council meeting, or maybe the first part of April, they are having tentatively set up April 26th as their Youth and Government Day in the city of Norco. And I would sure like to see at least a representative from them come maybe do a presentation for us within the next council meeting, at least by the first part of April. We can so we know what they're doing.
Yeah, sure. Actually, they have a presentation going before the school board, so why not do it for the city council?
Absolutely. I like that. All right, thank you.
Okay, Kevin?
I just have a couple things. One, Andy, we had the enforcement, the ticketing that was done at Norco L. We were going to bring it up. Rob, you may not know about this, but there was a complaint about the ticketing that was done, even though it was, 4 tickets or something crazy. And what I would recommend that we do is maybe send the school district, let them know that all they have to do is let them know when there's a special event, that they just got to let everybody know. So that if they're parked in the horse trail, if they're parked where they're not supposed to be parked, they're going to get a ticket. But if there's a special event, then the deputies know not to ticket unless it's parked in the, well, even then, you can get permission to park on the horse trail. I think we need to let the district know that so we don't have another ugly, poor Eric got beat up by a lawyer.
Well, actually, staff is already scheduling a meeting with the school.
Okay, good. And then Kip's Corner, I talked to you about that, though. If we could, you know what, Berwin was, back before I got on council, was trying to deal with this, the easement that goes at Kip's Corner behind the Mooger property. Steve knows where it's at. If there's somehow we can find that out, trim those trees, that's supposed to be a trail back there. There's all those encroachments back there. We need to figure out what's going on there. I think Robin brought this up last time, but I was talking to the vice principal at Norco High School. The trees at 2nd and Hillside, apparently they're really dangerous, and there's some problems because people are parking back in them, and maybe we need to see about cutting those trees down.
I'm sorry, which one?
They're pepper trees at the corner of 2nd and Hillside. Were those the ones you were talking about? Yeah, I think they need to be cut down. I think they're not safe. They got kids that get back inside there. They can't see. There's visual problems, stuff like that. And then I had youth advisory. And then the last thing, there's a dog kennel on 6th Street that I keep kind of complaining about. And the guy must have a gazillion dogs in there, but it's a dog kennel. It's not a dog kennel. I don't know what they call it, but they have some, what's that?
Rescue.
It's a rescue, but you know what? I see the guy was sitting there eating breakfast across the street. The guy must have walked 10 dogs. And I mean, it's packed full of dogs. And that's the same place where a dog got out, got onto Tommy Vaughn's property, jumped the fence and attacked the horse. And I know they're not letting that happen now, but doggone it. I've been kind of pushing on this now for almost 2.5 years, and I'd like to see some resolution to it. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. Andy? Eric. Chief, I'm sorry.
Eric's fine.
Well, I wanted to promote you over Dan, so...
Yeah. I can't believe...
You're the chief. You're just the captain now.
I can't believe Hedge got a promotion. I just don't get it.
I think it's great. Gina? Money in the bank? Good. Brian? Steve? Chad?
Not that I haven't said enough, but I do want to let council know that the Riverside County Flood Control last month had their meeting to approve the next fiscal year's budget. It includes 11 projects for the city of Norco that the staff is going to work on. There are 5 other projects that flood control is going to work on. So the staff projects currently, the 11, 5 of them are in design already. 4 of them will be built or hopefully start being built before the end of this current fiscal year. And then we are already in discussions with them to actually, hopefully they will let us do some of the projects they were going to design, because they're backed up with trying to help out the entire county, and they're interested in allowing us to go ahead and do the design on some of the other ones so we can get these things moving a little bit faster. They would do the larger projects, i.e. like up in Crestview and the Hillside area. We would take the other ones that are kind of pushed back, and we might get them done in a year or two rather than waiting an undetermined amount of time. So it's over $4 million, $4.5 million for ourselves in regards to the smaller projects. So certainly they've been very impressed with Norco as far as the amount of work we've done so far, and keep talking about Norco as far as the work that's being done, encouraging other agencies to do their own projects. So plenty of work that will be done this remainder of this fiscal year, and a lot more next fiscal year to help out drainage issues.
Good work. Yeah. Grow that relationship. Cheryl?
I just want to comment that the State of the City address has been scheduled for Thursday, March 30th. Doors open at 6 p.m. at Nellie Weaver Hall, and more information is available on the city's website, Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media.
What's that date again?
March 30th. Thursday, March 30th.
I'm out of town With that, thank you all for attending. We're adjourned.